When one of the biggest movie stars on Earth drives himself, no driver, no assistant, no camera crew, to a quiet street in Pasadena, California, and sits in his car for 11 minutes before he can make himself get out, you know that whatever is behind that door is not a normal thing. It is March 2024. Keanu Reeves is 59 years old. He has made over 70 movies. He has been loved by hundreds of millions of people around the world. He has survived losses that would have broken most people, losses so deep and so private that most of his fans have no idea they even happened. He has faced villains on screen. He has buried people he loved in real life. He has rebuilt himself from pieces more than once. And yet on this Tuesday morning, he is sitting in a parked car on a residential street lined with green trees, watching a clock, unable to make himself walk 12 steps to a front door. Because behind that door is a woman named Dolores, a woman he has not seen in 30 years. A woman he met in Toronto in 1984 when he was a broke, unknown 19-year-old boy with one bag, one backpack, and one dream, sitting on the floor of a tiny apartment reading a beat-up paperback, eating peanut butter from the jar, trying to figure out how to become something. She was the girl on the ladder, painting a theater backdrop when he walked in for an audition. Paint on her fingers, flour on her jeans from the bakery where she worked every morning at 5 a.m. She looked down at him from that ladder and laughed. A real laugh, not a polite one. And he decided, in that exact moment, that he wanted to hear that laugh as many times as possible. What followed was the quietest, warmest, most ordinary love of his entire life. Sunday walks along the river, late nights in a diner on Bloor Street, where coffee cost 75 cents, and nobody bothered you for staying too long. Sunday tamales at her parents' kitchen table where her father gave him yellow tulips when he left one evening, and her mother put food in front of him without waiting for an answer, because in that house, the answer was always assumed. It was the first place Keanu Reeves ever felt like a person instead of a visitor in someone else's story. And then Hollywood called, and he left, and she let him go. And for 30 years, life moved forward the way life does, loudly, fast, without asking anyone's permission. Keanu became one of the most famous men on Earth. Dolores built a quiet life in Pasadena, 14 miles from the center of Hollywood. Close enough to be in the same world, far enough to be in a completely different one. 30 years passed, and then, in January 2024, a letter arrived, not from Dolores, from her younger sister, a woman who had been carrying the edge of a secret for nearly 4 decades. A woman who had just received a medical diagnosis that made her tired, deeply, finally tired, of keeping the world from being more honest. The letter said only this: "There is something my sister should have the chance to tell you herself. I am not going to tell you what it is. But if you ever find yourself with a quiet afternoon and a brave enough heart, her address is below." Keanu read that letter twice. He folded it. He put it in his desk drawer. He left it there for 6 weeks. And then one Tuesday morning in March, he cleared his afternoon, got in his car alone, and drove east on the 210 freeway toward Pasadena. He parked on a quiet street lined with green trees. He sat in the car for 11 minutes. He walked 12 steps to a green front door. He knocked. The door opened, and Dolores, 57 years old, silver in her hair, clay on her hands from the studio where she had been working moments before, looked at him with the same warm brown eyes that had not changed in 30 years, and she told him something. One thing, said quietly in a calm voice, the way people speak when they have been holding a truth for so long that saying it out loud finally feels like setting down something very heavy. What she said made Keanu Reeves go completely still. He did not speak. He did not move. For almost a full minute, one of the most famous men on Earth stood in that living room and could not find a single word. But here is the thing that nobody knew. Here is the part that nobody, not Dolores, not the sister who wrote the letter, not anyone, saw coming. The secret that truly left him speechless was not the one Dolores told him. It was what her daughter did next, what she pulled out of her wallet, what she had been carrying, quietly, in the smallest pocket of the thing she kept closest to herself for 25 years, without telling anyone, without asking for anything, without making a single sound. Watch this entire video. Because what happens in that living room in Pasadena on a bright April morning, with the purple jacaranda trees outside and the coffee getting cold on the table between them, is the kind of thing that does not have a category. It is not a reunion story. It is not a Hollywood story. It is a story about the way love sometimes looks, from the outside, like nothing at all, and turns out, when you finally open the door, to have been everything. The whole time, before this story even begins, here is what you came for. In the spring of 2024, Keanu Reeves knocked on a door in a quiet neighborhood in Pasadena, California. The street was lined with green trees. The morning was bright and still. He stood on a small front path surrounded by ceramic pots filled with succulents and red flowers. And he knocked like a regular person, not a movie star, not a legend. Just a man who had been carrying a question for 30 years. A woman named Dolores Vega opened the door. She was 57 years old. Her hair was dark with threads of silver running through it like rivers on a map. Her eyes were warm and brown and, this is the part that would stop you cold if you saw it, they hadn't changed at all, not in 30 years. They were the exact same eyes that had watched a 19-year-old boy climb into a taxi on a wet Toronto street in the spring of 1985 and disappear into the life that was waiting for him. Keanu looked at her. She looked at him. Neither of them said anything for a moment that felt much longer than it was. And then she told him something. One thing, said quietly, in a calm voice. The way people speak when they have been holding a truth for so long, that saying it out loud almost feels like setting down something very heavy. What she said made Keanu Reeves, a man who has stared down villains on screen, who has buried people he loved in real life, who has faced cameras and crowds and grief in front of the entire world, go completely still. He did not speak. He did not move. For almost a full minute. One of the most famous men on earth simply stood in that doorway and could not find a single word. What she told him, you will find at the very end of this story. But if you want to understand why it hit him that hard, why a grown man of 59 years, who thought he had already survived every surprise life could throw at him, went silent like a stopped clock, then you need to go back, all the way back to the beginning. To a city that smells like lake water and winter. To a boy sitting on a floor. To the girl who would change everything without either of them knowing it yet. The year is 1984. Ronald Reagan is President of the United States. The Terminator just hit movie theaters, and people are still talking about it. Michael Jackson's Thriller is playing on every radio in North America. The world feels fast and loud and full of big things happening to other people. And in a tiny apartment in Toronto, Canada, a teenage boy is sitting on the floor. Not a couch, the floor. Cross-legged, back against the radiator, because the radiator is the warmest spot in the room. Wearing a gray sweatshirt with a hole in the left elbow. He has a beat-up paperback copy of The Outsiders in his hands. This is the 4th time he has read it. He knows this because he made a small pencil mark on the inside cover each time. 4 marks now, lined up like little soldiers. His name is Keanu Charles Reeves. He is 19 years old. He is not yet famous. He is not yet anything except a boy on a floor in a cold apartment, reading about other boys who didn't fit anywhere either, and feeling, as he always does when he reads this book, like someone finally understood the question he had been asking his whole life without knowing how to ask it. The question is simple. It is the same question that lives inside every person who has moved too many times and lost too many things too early. Where do I belong? Keanu has already lived in 4 countries by the time he is 19. He was born on September 2, 1964, in Beirut, Lebanon, a city of ancient stone and sea light that he has no real memory of, only a birthplace printed on a document. His mother, Patricia Taylor, was a costume designer, creative and restless and always moving toward the next thing. His father, Samuel Nowlin Reeves Jr., was Hawaiian Chinese, charming and unreliable in equal measure. He left when Keanu was 3 years old. He would go to prison for drug charges later. Keanu would not have a real relationship with him. After Lebanon came Sydney, Australia, then New York City, then Toronto. 3 stepfathers woven through those years. Keanu does not talk about this with bitterness. That is one of the most unusual things about him, the absence of bitterness in a life that had plenty of reasons for it. He is simply quiet about the painful parts. He files them somewhere interior and does not take them out in front of other people. He drops out of De La Salle College in North Toronto. School does not work the way his brain works. He is not stupid. Everyone who spends 5 minutes with him understands he is not stupid. He is just wired differently. He absorbs feelings before he absorbs facts. He understands people before he understands systems. His hockey coach at a local rink tells anyone who will listen that Keanu is one of the best young goalies he has ever coached. There is something about standing in that net, being the last line of defense, reading the whole ice at once, reacting before thinking, that suits him perfectly. He is fast. He is focused. He is fearless in the crease in a way that surprises bigger, older players. But it is his acting teacher, a patient woman named Beverly Charlton, who runs a small drama workshop out of a rented hall on DuPont Street, who says the thing that matters most. She pulls him aside after a scene exercise one afternoon, and she says, "Keanu, you have something I can't teach. You feel things on stage and you don't hide it. Most people spend their whole lives learning how to stop hiding. You already don't. Don't let anyone train that out of you." He thinks about those words for years. He has no money. He has no famous family connections. He has no clear plan. He eats cheap. He wears the same few things. He reads constantly. Not assigned books. Just books he finds. Books someone left somewhere. Books from the second-hand shop on Harvard Street where 3 paperbacks cost $1. He has no plan except one: get to Hollywood, make something of himself, prove, to himself mostly, though he would never say that out loud, that a boy from nowhere who belonged nowhere could make a place for himself in the world through sheer feeling and hard work and the refusal to quit. That is everything he has in the fall of 1984. That and a girl. He meets her on a Tuesday. It is the kind of Tuesday that doesn't announce itself as important. Gray sky, smell of wet leaves on the sidewalk. He is going to audition for a tiny, non-paying role in a community theater production of A Midsummer Night's Dream, not because he particularly loved Shakespeare, but because Beverly told him that every stage is practice and practice is everything. He walks into the theater, which is really just a converted church hall with folding chairs and a raised wooden platform at one end. And the first thing he sees is a girl on a ladder. She is painting a backdrop, a forest scene, green and blue and dark, with thick-trunked trees and a smear of gold at the top that is either a moon or a sun. It is hard to tell. She is concentrating so hard that she doesn't hear him come in. She has a small paintbrush between her teeth, and a larger one in her right hand, and she is tilting her head at the backdrop the way painters do when they are deciding if something is right. She has paint on 3 of her fingers. She has flour on the front of her jeans, from the bakery where she works every morning starting at 5 a.m., a fact he will learn later. Her hair is pulled up with a pencil stuck through it. She is wearing a flannel shirt the color of a winter sky. She finally hears him come in, and she looks down from the ladder. She does not recognize him. She does not see a future movie star or a rising talent or anything except a tall, dark-haired young man standing at the back of the hall with a paperback sticking out of his jacket pocket, looking slightly lost. She says, "Auditions aren't until 3. You're early," he says. "I know. I didn't want to be late, so I left too early." She looks at him for a second. Then she laughs. It is a real laugh. Not polite, not performed. Just a genuine, surprised, delighted sound that echoes a little in the empty hall. He decides, right then, that he wants to hear that laugh again as many times as possible. Her name is Dolores Vega. She is the daughter of Rodrigo Vega and Carmen Vega, who came to Toronto from Guadalajara, Mexico, in 1974, with 2 suitcases, a cousin's address, and the particular courage that belongs to people who leave everything familiar behind in search of something better for their children. Rodrigo runs a small flower shop on Roncesvalles Avenue, a neighborhood of Polish bakeries and old Catholic churches and narrow houses pressed close together. The shop is tiny. The refrigerator in the back hums too loud. The display in the window changes every week because Rodrigo believes people need to see something beautiful when they walk past, even if they are not stopping to buy. Carmen makes tamales every Sunday. She makes them the way her own mother taught her. Masa spread carefully, filling of slow-cooked pork and red chili, folded in corn husks and steamed for just the right amount of time. The smell fills the whole house by 10 in the morning and does not leave until long after the plates are cleared. They are warm people, solid people, the kind of people who ask you once if you are hungry and then simply put food in front of you without waiting for an answer, because in their house, the answer is always assumed. Keanu starts eating Sunday tamales at the Vega house in October 1984. He is nervous the first time. He sits up very straight and says please and thank you too often, and Carmen watches him with kind, careful eyes and figures out within 20 minutes that this boy has not had much experience with tables like this. Loud, crowded, overflowing, anchored by 2 people who are clearly and completely devoted to each other and to their daughters. She does not make a thing of it. She simply passes him more food. His relationship with Dolores grows the way all real things grow, slowly, without announcement, rooting itself in ordinary moments before either of them notices how deep the roots have gone. Sunday walks along the Humber River, where the water is dark and cold, and the path is quiet enough to hear their own voices clearly. Late nights at an all-night diner on Bloor Street, called The Patrician, a real place, still there today, where the coffee costs 75 cents, and the booths are cracked red vinyl, and nobody bothers you for sitting too long. He tells her about the countries he has lived in. She listens without pity, which he likes. She asks questions about the places instead of the leaving. What did Beirut smell like in photographs his mother showed him? What was Sydney like? Was New York as loud as everyone says? She tells him about Guadalajara, as her parents describe it. The color of the light there, the sound of the market, the grandmother she never met, but feels she knows through stories. She has never left Canada. She has a whole world inside her that was built from other people's memories of elsewhere. They are, in this way, 2 people made of places they half belong to. One evening in late November, Keanu is sitting at the Vega kitchen table after dinner, while Carmen washes dishes, and Rodrigo reads the newspaper, and Dolores is on the telephone with her sister in the hallway, laughing about something he can't quite hear. The radiator is clicking. The kitchen smells of chiles and dish soap. A small television in the corner is showing the news on low volume. He looks around the room, and he feels something he does not have a word for immediately. It takes him a moment to find it. Safe. He feels safe. Not safe like nothing bad can happen here. Safe like this is what normal feels like. This is what other kids had that I kept missing. Dolores comes back into the kitchen, and she looks at his face, and something in his expression makes her stop. "What?" she says. He says, I feel like a person here, in your house. Is that strange to say? She thinks about it for a moment. She doesn't laugh at it or wave it away. She says, no. That's what home is supposed to feel like. Chairs. By December 1984, they are deeply in love. It is the uncomplicated, total love of two people who have not yet been hurt enough to be afraid of loving completely. They do not say it dramatically. It is simply present in everything. In the way he saves the window seat at the diner for her. In the way she keeps a copy of The Outsiders on her shelf after he lends it to her. In the way Carmen Vega smiles to herself when she sees them sitting close on the couch pretending to watch television. Rodrigo says nothing about it directly. But one Sunday he gives Keanu a small bunch of yellow tulips as he is leaving, left over from the shop, he says, and tells him to keep them in water. It is his way of saying, you are welcome here. You are one of ours now. Keanu carries those tulips home on the bus in the November dark, holding them carefully so they don't bend, feeling something in his chest that is warm and terrifying in equal measure. He does not know, on that bus, on that night, that he has less than 4 months left in Toronto. He does not know that the thing he has just found, this warmth, this table, this laughing girl with flour on her jeans, is about to become the thing he spends the next 30 years quietly carrying inside him. The way you carry a song you once loved before you knew what love cost. The first thing that changes is the phone call. It comes on a Thursday morning in February 1985. Keanu is at Beverly Charlton's drama workshop on DuPont Street, running a scene for the 3rd time, when someone knocks on the hall door and says there is a call for him at the payphone in the lobby. He knows before he picks it up that it is Gerald Fitch. Gerald Fitch is not a powerful man. He is not the kind of agent you see in movies. No corner office, no expensive suits, no army of assistants. He operates out of a cluttered second-floor office above a dry cleaner on Yonge Street. And his desk is buried under scripts and trade papers and empty coffee cups, and he talks very fast in the way that people talk when they are always slightly behind where they want to be. But Gerald Fitch has an eye. He had seen Keanu in a small showcase production 8 months earlier, and he had called Beverly the next morning and said, "That dark-haired boy, the quiet one. Get me a meeting." Now, on this February Thursday, Gerald says 3 sentences that rearrange everything. I got you an audition for a film. Hockey picture, shooting in Hamilton. Small part, but it gets you a credit. Real film, Keanu. Not a workshop. Not a showcase. A film. The movie is Youngblood, a hockey drama. Shooting begins in spring 1985 in Hamilton, Ontario, just over an hour from Toronto. Rob Lowe is attached to star. Patrick Swayze is in it. It is a real Hollywood-adjacent production, the kind of thing that puts your face on screen in a way that can open the next door, and the door after that. Gerald says, but here is the thing. This is not the destination. This is the first step. The work. The real work. The work that makes a career. That's in Los Angeles. After this, we talk about Los Angeles. You understand me? Keanu stands at the payphone with the receiver pressed hard against his ear. Through the smudged lobby window, he can see the street outside. February in Toronto is gray and hard. A woman pushes a stroller through slush. A delivery truck idles at the curb, pumping white exhaust into the cold air. He says, "Yeah, I understand you." He hangs up. He stands at the payphone for a moment longer than necessary. Then he goes back into the workshop and runs the scene a 4th time, and Beverly says it is the best he has done it yet. And she is right, because something has shifted in him. Some door has swung open, and it is coming through every word, he tells Dolores that night. They are at the Patrician, their usual booth, the one by the window that looks out onto Bloor Street. It is a Wednesday night in February, and the diner is half empty. The cook is playing a radio in the kitchen, something country, faint and tinny through the pass-through window. Their coffee cups have been refilled twice. Neither of them is drinking. He has told her about the audition. He has told her about Gerald's words. He has laid it all out on the table between them, the way you lay out a map you are both going to have to read together. Dolores is looking at her coffee cup. She is turning it slowly on the saucer. 1/4 turn. Stop. 1/4 turn. Stop. He watches her do this, and he knows. The way you know things about people you love, in the bone, before they say a word. That she already understands exactly what this means. She has understood it, probably, longer than he has. She is the one who finally speaks. She says, I know. Just that. I know. He says, I haven't said anything yet. She looks up. Her eyes are steady. Not tearful, not angry, just very, very clear. The way eyes get when someone has already done their crying privately, before the conversation. You're going to say you have to go, she says. And you're right. You do. He opens his mouth. She shakes her head gently. Don't argue with me yet. Let me finish. He closes his mouth. She wraps both hands around her coffee cup. She looks at the table. When she speaks, it is slowly and carefully. The way someone speaks when they have been composing sentences in their head for weeks, and they want to get them right. I have been watching you in that workshop for 6 months, she says. I have watched you run the same scene 15 times, until it becomes something true. I have watched you read every script Gerald sends you, like it might be the one that changes everything. I have watched you practice in my bathroom mirror when you think I'm asleep. She pauses. You thought I didn't see that, she says. And there is the smallest flicker of a smile. I always saw that. He is very still. Keanu, she says, you are going to become someone very large. I don't mean famous, though maybe that too. I mean large. The world is going to take up all the space around you. There won't be room left over for a girl who paints theater sets and works at a bakery on Roncesvalles Avenue. He says, that's not true. It might not be true right now, she says, but it will be. And I would rather have this, what we had, whole and undamaged, than watch it slowly come apart from a distance while you become who you're supposed to be, and feel guilty about it. He says, Dolores, I love you. She says simply, that's why I'm saying this, not to hurt you, he argues. Of course he argues. He writes her the address of the rooming house in Los Feliz, Los Angeles, the place Gerald has found him for when the time comes. A cheap room in a house shared with 3 other young men chasing various dreams. On a paper napkin from the dispenser on the table, he slides it across to her. He tells her to write him. He tells her he will call every week. He tells her that distance is not the same as disappearing, and that he is not his father, and he does not leave the people he loves without looking back. He says all of this, and he means all of it completely. She takes the napkin. She folds it carefully. She puts it in the pocket of her coat. She does not say, yes, okay, we will make it work. She does not say, no, I don't believe you. She says, finish your coffee. It's getting cold. He leaves Toronto in the middle of March 1985. The morning is wet. Late winter rain. Not snow anymore, but the kind of cold, hard rain that feels worse than snow, because it has no beauty to it. Just gray sky and gray street and water running in the gutters. He has one large bag and a backpack. Gerald has arranged a ride to the airport with a friend of a friend. The car is a brown 1978 Buick with a heater that works on one side only. Dolores comes to say goodbye on the sidewalk outside her parents' house on Roncesvalles Avenue. She is wearing her flannel shirt, the blue-gray one. The one she was wearing the first day he saw her on that ladder, and her hair is down. She has no paint on her fingers today. She looks very clean and very young and very composed, and it costs her more than he can see. He hugs her. She holds on for a long time, longer than a casual goodbye. Her face is pressed against his shoulder, and her arms are tight, and she breathes him in once, slowly, deliberately, the way you breathe in something you are trying to memorize. Then she steps back. She says, "Go be who you are." He gets in the Buick. He does not let himself look back as the car pulls away. She does not cry until the sound of the engine disappears completely around the corner of the street. Then she goes inside. She goes to her room. She closes the door. Carmen Vega, in the kitchen, hears the door close. She does not knock. She simply turns off the kitchen radio so the house is quiet, and there is nothing to pretend over. She will wait. In the weeks that follow, Keanu calls twice from the rooming house in Los Feliz. The line is bad both times. Long-distance calls in 1985 are expensive and crackle with distance. They talk for 7 minutes the first time, 4 minutes the second. He writes one letter, 3 pages, small handwriting, both sides. She writes back once, 1 page, and then the letters stop. He tells himself she is busy. He tells himself he will call again when he is settled. He tells himself there is time. There is not time. There is never as much time as you think. By May 1985, the silence between them has hardened from something temporary into something that has a shape. He picks up the phone in the hallway of the Los Feliz rooming house 3 times. He holds the receiver. He puts it back. He does not know why he cannot make himself dial. He will spend years not fully understanding why. Only later, much later, when he has lost enough people to understand the particular cruelty of almost things, will he recognize it for what it was. He was 20 years old, and he was terrified that if he called, she would sound far away in a way that had nothing to do with distance. And that would make it real. Better to leave the door slightly open than to watch it close. So he leaves it open. And across that open door, across the 3,400 kilometers between Toronto and Los Angeles, Dolores Vega sits in her room on Roncesvalles Avenue and makes a decision. She has known since February. Since the 3rd week of February, to be exact. 10 days before Keanu got the call from Gerald Fitch. Though she did not know about that call yet. She had walked to a pharmacy on Queen Street West on a Tuesday evening after her morning shift at the bakery. She had bought a test. She had taken it in the pharmacy bathroom because she could not wait to get home. She had sat on the edge of that sink in that small tiled room under fluorescent lights and looked at the result for a very long time, 6 weeks along, maybe 7. She has told no one, not Carmen, not Marisol, her younger sister, who is 17 and sharp as a tack, and would see everything on Dolores's face the moment she walked in the door. Not her closest friend. No one. She carries it alone for weeks, through the conversation at the Patrician, through the goodbye on the sidewalk, through the 2 phone calls and the 1 letter, through the silence that follows. She sits with it in the way that people sit with enormous things, very still, very quiet, letting it fill the room until she can see its true shape. And in the last week of March 1985, she makes her decision. She will not tell him. She turns this choice over 100 times before she fixes it in place. She is not cruel. She does not do this from anger or from wounded pride. She does not do it because she wants to punish him for leaving or because she wants to claim something for herself alone. She does it because she loves him. She has watched that fire in him. She has watched the way he reads scripts like they are oxygen. She has watched what happens to his face when he talks about becoming something. Not famous, not rich, but real, useful, fully himself. She has seen a boy who has spent his entire life belonging nowhere finally understand what he was born to do, and she knows, with the quiet, devastating certainty of someone who loves a person without illusion, that if she tells him, he will come back. He will get back in a brown Buick and come back to Toronto, and he will say, "It is fine. It is good. He wants this." And he will mean it. He will mean every word. And the fire will go out. Not immediately. Slowly. The way fires go out in damp places, not with a dramatic gust, but with a long, patient dimming, until one day there is nothing left but warmth. where something bright used to be. She will not do that to him. She will not be the reason the brightest thing inside him disappears. So she picks up the telephone 3 times in April. She puts it down 3 times. And then, on a gray Tuesday morning that smells of rain and bakery yeast, and the flowers from her father's shop 2 streets away, she puts the folded napkin with the Los Feliz address into the back of her desk drawer and closes it. She disappears from his life without a sound. No dramatic letter, no explanation, no final scene, just silence. The clean, complete, irrevocable kind. The kind that slowly, over months and years, stops feeling like a choice and starts feeling like simply the way things are, the way things have always been. She will carry this silence for 38 years. And somewhere inside that silence, growing, learning to walk, losing her first tooth, playing her first guitar chord on a second-hand instrument, laughing the laugh that fills rooms like sunlight, is a girl who does not yet know her own full story. Her name will be Sophia, and she is already the most important secret in the world. Los Angeles in 1985 does not care who you are. It does not care that you came from nowhere. It does not care that you have one bag and a backpack and a room in a shared house in Los Feliz, where the shower runs cold on Tuesdays and Thursdays, for reasons nobody has ever figured out. It does not care about your hockey skills or your acting teacher's kind words, or the fire that everyone who knows you can see burning behind your eyes. Los Angeles simply waits. It spreads itself out under the sun, enormous, glittering, indifferent, and it lets you come to it. It has seen 10,000 boys like you. It has eaten most of them quietly and spit out the bones without ceremony. It is not cruel about this. It is simply the nature of the place. Keanu Reeves arrives in this city with $22 in his pocket after paying his first week's rent. He buys a loaf of bread and a jar of peanut butter. He puts The Outsiders on the windowsill of his small room because it is the only thing he has that feels like it belongs to him completely. And then he goes to work. Youngblood shoots in Hamilton, Ontario in the spring of 1985, before he fully relocates. It is a small part. He is on screen for minutes. But he is on screen, a real screen, with real cameras, with Rob Lowe and Patrick Swayze moving through the same spaces he moves through. And something crystallizes in him during those weeks of shooting that had only been liquid before. He can do this. Not might be able to. Not perhaps. Can. He feels it the way goalies feel the puck. Not with the eyes first, but with something else. Something deeper and faster than sight. Gerald Fitch, watching from the side of the set one afternoon, makes a small note in his pocket diary. He does not show it to Keanu. It simply says, "He's going to make it. Get him to LA by fall." By 1986, Keanu is in Los Angeles full-time. He gets a role in a film called River's Edge, a dark, quiet, deeply strange film about teenagers and a murder and the terrible capacity of young people to feel nothing when they should feel everything. It is not a comfortable film. It is not supposed to be. He plays a character named Matt, a boy with a conscience in a group that has mostly lost theirs. A boy who has to decide, alone, what the right thing is when everyone around him has decided the right thing doesn't matter. Critics notice him. Not the big critics, not yet, but the ones who watch carefully. The ones who write for small publications and see 50 films a year and still get surprised sometimes. Those critics write his name down. One review, in a small Los Angeles paper, says simply, "Reeves has something that cannot be manufactured. Watch him." He is 21 years old. He is eating ramen noodles 4 nights a week. He is watching everything. 1988 brings Dangerous Liaisons. This is the film that frightens him most. He knows it while he is making it, and he says so, later, in interviews. Though he says it the way he says most things about himself. Quietly, without drama, as a simple fact rather than a confession. He is acting alongside Glenn Close. John Malkovich, Michelle Pfeiffer, Uma Thurman. These are not community theater people. These are not Hamilton, Ontario film sets. This is a major Hollywood production directed by Stephen Frears, based on an 18th-century French novel, full of wit and cruelty and precision, and Keanu is playing a French nobleman, and his accent is not always perfect, and he knows it. He prepares harder than he has ever prepared for anything. He reads everything. He watches everything. He asks questions constantly. Of the director, of the other actors, of the crew members who have been doing this 20 years longer than he has. He is not too proud to ask. He has never been too proud to ask. This is one of the things people who work with him remember most consistently. Not the talent, which is obvious, but the hunger to learn, the complete absence of ego about not knowing things yet. The film releases in December 1988. He is not the standout. He knows this. The film belongs to Close and Malkovich and Pfeiffer in that order, but he is in it. He held his own in rooms he had no business being in yet. Gerald Fitch calls him the morning after the first reviews come in. He says, "You're still here. That's what matters. You're still here." 1989. Bill and Ted's Excellent Adventure. Ted Logan. The lovable, enormous-hearted, wonderfully, genuinely not very bright Ted Logan, who travels through time with his best friend Bill and greets every wonder of history with the same open-mouthed, unironic, completely sincere delight. America falls in love. Not with Keanu Reeves, the serious young actor from River's Edge. With Ted. With this goofy, warm, uncynical person who believes fully and without embarrassment in friendship and music and the fundamental goodness of things. What most people watching in 1989 do not understand, what takes years to understand, is that Ted Logan is not so far from the real person playing him. The warmth is not performed. The sincerity is not an act. Suddenly, Keanu Reeves is on the cover of magazines. He is on talk shows sitting slightly awkwardly, because he has never been fully comfortable with the talking about himself part of fame. Only the doing the work part. He is on billboards. His face is on the sides of buses in cities he has never visited. He is 24 years old. He calls his mother. She cries a little. She does not say, "I told you so," because she is not that kind of person. She says, "Are you eating enough?" He says, "Yes." He is not, particularly. But some things you don't say to your mother. In Pasadena, California, 14 miles east of the center of Hollywood, close enough to be in the same world and far enough to be in a completely different one, Dolores Vega goes to see Bill and Ted's Excellent Adventure alone on a Wednesday afternoon. She buys one ticket. She sits in the middle of a nearly empty theater. She orders nothing from the concession stand. She watches the whole film. She laughs twice. Genuinely. Because Ted Logan is impossible not to laugh at. And at the end, when the credits roll and his name appears, Keanu Reeves, she sits in the dark theater for a moment longer than everyone else. In the row in front of her, two teenage girls are talking about how cute he is. Dolores puts on her coat. She goes home. At home, in the small apartment she is renting on Marengo Avenue, a 4-month-old baby girl is asleep in a second-hand crib in the corner of the bedroom. The baby's name is Sofia Elena Vega. She has dark hair and round cheeks, and tiny curled fists that she holds up beside her face when she sleeps, like a boxer resting between rounds. Dolores stands in the doorway of the bedroom for a long moment. She looks at her daughter. She looks at the sleeping face, and she finds, as she always finds every time, with a consistency that is both comfort and ache, traces of two people in it. Herself, yes, the Vega cheekbones, Carmen's small nose, and something else, something in the set of the jaw, something in the dark eyes that are closed now but that, when open, carry a particular quality, a depth, a watchfulness, a feeling that this person is absorbing everything around her before she decides what to do with it. Dolores does not say this out loud to anyone. She simply tucks the blanket more firmly around her daughter's small shoulders. She goes to the kitchen. She makes herself a cup of tea. She sits at the table alone in the quiet apartment, and she holds the warm cup in both hands. And she breathes. This is enough, she tells herself. This life, this small apartment, this sleeping baby, this cup of tea, this ordinary Tuesday night. This is enough. She believes it. Mostly. 1991. Point Break. Keanu Reeves as Johnny Utah, FBI agent, former college football star, undercover surfer, man torn between duty and the intoxicating pull of a life lived completely free of consequence. The film is directed by Kathryn Bigelow. It is loud and fast and deeply, unashamedly itself, and it becomes one of those films that people quote for decades, not because it is the greatest film ever made, but because it captures something true about a particular kind of wanting, the wanting to be free, to be fast, to belong to something larger than yourself. The world falls further in love with Keanu Reeves. He buys a motorcycle, not for a role, for himself. A Norton Commando, old and loud and beautiful. He rides it on canyon roads above Los Angeles on Sunday mornings, when the traffic is light and the air smells of sage, and the city below is still sleeping. He rides alone. He finds in the riding something similar to what he used to find in the hockey net. That state of pure present tense attention, where there is no past and no future, and no weight of anything, only the road and the speed, and the requirement to be completely, utterly here. He is not unhappy. He is also not entirely whole. He cannot explain this to anyone in a way that makes full sense. He has friends. He has work he loves. He has Gerald, who is still fast-talking and still buried in scripts, now from a slightly larger office. He has his mother. He has a life that is, by any external measure, remarkable. But there is something that sits in him, quiet and persistent, like a stone in a shoe that you keep forgetting and then remembering, that he cannot fully name. He does not think of Dolores every day, but he thinks of her more than he thinks of Toronto, more than he thinks of most things that belong to the before time. He thinks of the Humber River in October. He thinks of red vinyl diner booths and 75-cent coffee. He thinks of a kitchen that smelled of chiles and dish soap and was the first place he ever felt like a person, instead of a visitor in someone else's story. He never mentions this to anyone. It is simply there, filed somewhere interior, the way all the painful things are filed. October 31st, 1993. River Phoenix dies on the sidewalk outside the Viper Room nightclub on Sunset Boulevard in West Hollywood. He is 23 years old. They had worked together on My Own Private Idaho in 1991. They were not just colleagues. River Phoenix was one of the rare people in Keanu's life who spoke the same interior language, who understood, without explanation, the particular experience of being deeply feeling in a world that rewards performance over truth. Keanu is not at the Viper Room that night. He finds out the next morning. He does not speak publicly about this grief in detail for many years. When he does speak of it, it is in small, careful sentences. He says River was a real artist. He says losing him was a real loss. He says some things you don't recover from completely. You simply learn to carry them differently. This is, it turns out, a skill Keanu Reeves is quietly becoming very good at. The carrying of things. 1994. Speed. A bus. A bomb. A speed limit of 50 miles per hour that cannot be broken, or everyone dies. Sandra Bullock in the passenger seat. Keanu at the wheel. The whole world watching. The film makes $350 million at the global box office. Keanu Reeves is now one of the 10 most famous people on Earth. He gives a large portion of his Matrix earnings, reported to be somewhere between $30 and $75 million, to the special effects and costume teams on the film. Not publicly, not for a press release. He is told about this detail by crew members who can't quite believe it and feel the need to tell people. He does not confirm or deny it. He simply does not talk about it. He tips servers amounts that make them cry. He buys flowers from street vendors. He carries groceries for strangers. He sits next to grieving strangers on subway platforms and stays with them, without asking why they are crying, because he understands, by now, that sometimes what a person needs is simply for someone to sit down and not leave. He is not performing this kindness. This is simply who he is. This has always been who he is. The boy on the floor reading The Outsiders is still inside this famous man in every way that matters. Still quiet about the painful things. Still filing them somewhere interior. Still feeling everything more deeply than most people realize. Because he has always been better at listening than at being heard. Meanwhile, in Pasadena, 1992, Dolores meets a man named Tomas Ruiz at a ceramic arts workshop at the Armory Center for the Arts on West Colorado Boulevard. He is a high school art teacher, patient and steady and genuinely good in the way that some people simply are, without effort or performance. He has kind hands and a slow smile, and he falls in love with Dolores over 6 weeks of Thursday evening workshops without quite meaning to. He meets Sophia on a Sunday afternoon in the spring. Sophia is 6 years old. She looks at him with her watchful, absorbing eyes. She says, "Do you know how to make anything out of clay?" He says, "I'm still learning." She says, "Me too. We can learn together." Tomas Ruiz looks at Dolores over the top of Sophia's head. Dolores looks back. That is, more or less, how it is decided. They marry in September 1992. A small ceremony. Rodrigo Vega weeps openly, which surprises no one. Carmen Vega makes tamales for 40 people. Sophia wears a yellow dress and carries a single flower from her grandfather's shop and takes the whole event very seriously, as she takes most things. Tomas adopts Sophia formally in 1994. She becomes Sofia Elena Ruiz. She never asks about her biological father. Not because she doesn't think about it, she does, in the way that children think about all the things that are slightly off-center about their stories, quietly and alone and in pieces, rather than all at once. But Tomas is her father. He is at every school play. He is at every guitar recital. He is the one who stays up with her when she is sick, and drives her to every museum she asks to visit, and argues with her about music theory in the car on the way home, in a way that means he is taking her seriously. He is her father. That is not a small thing. That is everything. December 24th, 1999. Keanu Reeves is 35 years old. His daughter, Ava Archer Syme Reeves, born to his girlfriend Jennifer Syme, is stillborn. The baby is buried. There is no script for this. There is no preparation, no rehearsal, no version of being Keanu Reeves that helps with this. The loss is simply the loss, enormous and private and permanent. He and Jennifer separate in early 2000. The grief between them is too large for the space they share. This happens. It is no one's fault. Some losses break the container they are held in. On April 2, 2001, Jennifer Syme dies in a car accident on Cahuenga Boulevard in Los Angeles. She is 28 years old. Keanu does not speak about this publicly in detail. He simply continues. He rides his motorcycle on canyon roads. He makes his films. He is kind to strangers in the specific, attentive way of someone who understands, from deep personal experience, that you can never tell from the outside what someone is carrying. 1999 also brings The Matrix. Keanu Reeves as Neo, the One. The man who learns that the world he thought was real is a construct, and that the truth, stranger and harder and more demanding than the comfortable lie, is the only thing worth choosing. There is a reason this film resonates the way it does. There is a reason audiences around the world feel something shift in their chest during the moment Neo takes the red pill and opens his eyes to the real shape of things. Truth is harder than comfort. Truth costs something, but it is the only thing that is actually real. Keanu Reeves understands this particular theme from the inside. He simply doesn't know yet how personally it is about to arrive. In Pasadena, Sofia Ruiz is 14 years old in 1999. She is tall for her age. She has her mother's warm brown eyes and a laugh that her friends at Blair High School describe, consistently and without coordinating, as the thing about her they love most. It fills a room. It is completely unself-conscious. It arrives suddenly and takes over entirely and makes everyone nearby feel that something good just happened. She plays guitar. She started at 9 on a second-hand instrument her grandfather Rodrigo found at a shop on Fair Oaks Avenue and had restrung and polished before he gave it to her. She played her first chord, a G chord, fingers awkward on the frets, the sound buzzing and imperfect. In her mother's living room on a Sunday afternoon, while Carmen and Rodrigo and Dolores and Tomas all sat on the couch pretending not to watch. She got the chord clean on the fourth try. She looked up. She said, "Again." Everyone laughed. Tomas said later, driving home, that it was the most Sophia thing she had ever done. Again. Not did I do it or was that right. Just, again. Let me do it again until it is exactly what I hear in my head. In 1999, Sophia is going through her mother's closet looking for a winter scarf. She finds a shoebox on the top shelf. Inside the shoebox, a stack of letters tied with kitchen twine, a dried flower, yellow, a tulip maybe, so old it is nearly translucent, like pressed paper, a folded paper napkin with an address written on it in handwriting she doesn't recognize, and at the very bottom of the box, a photograph. She picks up the photograph. It is old, the color slightly faded, the edges soft, the particular tones of 1980s photography. A theater, a painted backdrop of a forest in dark blues and greens. Her mother, very young, maybe 20, maybe younger, standing in front of the backdrop laughing at something off camera. And in the background of the photograph, slightly out of focus, a young man has just walked into the frame. Dark hair, mid-laugh, completely unaware the photo is being taken. Sophia looks at this young man for a long time. She has her mother's cheekbones. That is true. But there is something in the jaw of this young man in the photograph. Something in the way his face moves even in stillness. She knows who Keanu Reeves is. Everyone in 1999 knows who Keanu Reeves is. The Matrix is everywhere. His face is everywhere. But that is not why she is staring at this photograph. She is staring because of a feeling she cannot name and does not know what to do with. Feeling that arrives in the chest before the brain catches up. She puts the photograph back in the box. She puts the box back on the shelf. She finds her scarf. She goes downstairs. She says nothing. She will say nothing for 25 years. She will carry the photograph, eventually folded small, tucked into the back of every wallet she owns from the age of 16 onward, without ever showing it to anyone, without asking her mother directly, without demanding the truth she has already half-guessed in the private, wordless way that children understand the things adults believe they have hidden. She will carry it the way her mother carried the secret, quietly, completely, with a love so fierce it looks, from the outside, like nothing at all. 3 people, 3 silences. 1 truth traveling through the years, waiting for someone brave enough to finally say it out loud. That someone will turn out to be the one nobody expected. The world is moving at its usual impossible speed. There are wars happening. There are elections coming. There are 17 things trending on the internet at any given moment, each one replaced by 17 new things before anyone has had time to fully feel the first 17. The noise of the world in 2024 is a specific kind of noise. constant, layered, arriving from every direction at once, leaving almost no room for the quiet in which real things happen. In a house in Vancouver, British Columbia, a woman named Marisol Vega is sitting at her kitchen table at 7 in the morning with a cup of coffee she has not touched and a piece of paper in front of her that she has been looking at for 40 minutes without writing a single word. She is 53 years old. She is Dolores's younger sister. She has her mother Carmen's small nose and her father Rodrigo's stubborn eyes, the eyes of a person who has decided something and will not be argued out of it, even by themselves. She has known the secret for 38 years. Not all of it, not every detail, but enough. She was 17 in 1985. Sharp and watchful the way youngest siblings learn to be, with older sisters who think they are invisible. And she had seen enough in those months to understand the shape of what happened, even without being told directly. She had seen Dolores come home from the pharmacy on Queen Street West with steady hands and a too calm face. She had seen the slight thickening at her sister's waist that Dolores disguised under loose shirts through February and March. She had seen Dolores cry exactly once, sitting at the kitchen table at 2 in the morning, thinking everyone was asleep, making no sound, just tears running steadily down her face while she stared at a paper napkin with an address written on it. Marisol had stood in the dark hallway outside the kitchen for a long moment. Then she had gone back to bed. She had never said a word. Not to her parents, not to Dolores directly, not to anyone. She had carried the shape of the secret, not the full confirmed truth, but the shape of it, the weight of it, for nearly 4 decades, through her own marriage and her own children and her own life, built on a street in Vancouver, where it rains 8 months of the year, and the mountains are visible on the clear days, and everything feels both very far from and very connected to everything else. She had told herself it was not her secret to tell. She had told herself Dolores had made a choice, and that choice deserved to be respected. She had told herself Sophia had a good life and a good father, and that truth, uncomplicated by additional truth, was sometimes the kindest thing. She had believed all of this. For 38 years she had believed it the way you believe things you need to believe. Completely. But with a small unlocked door somewhere at the back of the belief, through which doubt occasionally walked in and sat down uninvited. Then, in November 2023, Marisol went to her doctor for a routine appointment. She came out 2 hours later with a diagnosis she had not expected, and a small printed pamphlet about early-stage breast cancer that she put in her coat pocket without reading, and did not take out again for 3 days. The cancer is caught early. Her doctors are calm and confident, and use words like treatable, and good prognosis, and strong odds. She is not dying. She understands this clearly, and she is grateful for it with a specific, bone-deep gratitude that only arrives when you have looked at the alternative long enough to understand it fully. But something changes anyway. Not dramatically, not all at once, more like the way light changes in a room when a cloud moves past the sun. The same room, the same furniture, the same walls, and yet everything looks slightly different, slightly more itself, slightly more real. She starts thinking about the unlocked door at the back of the belief. She starts thinking about Sophia, now 38 years old, teaching music at a middle school in Glendale, funny and bright and whole in the way that Dolores had always promised herself she would be. She starts thinking about what it means to be a whole person who does not know the whole truth of themselves. She starts thinking about Keanu Reeves, not the movie star, not the cultural monument, but the 19-year-old boy who used to sit at her parents' kitchen table and say please and thank you too many times and hold yellow tulips carefully on the bus because he didn't want them to bend. She thinks about what it means to live a life not knowing that a life came from you. She thinks about all of this for 2 months. And then, on a gray January morning in 2024, She sits down at her kitchen table with a cup of coffee she does not touch and a piece of paper she does not write on for 40 minutes. When she finally picks up the pen, she writes carefully. She is not a dramatic person. She does not write in flourishes or with the vocabulary of someone trying to make an impact. She simply writes the truth in plain sentences. The way her mother Carmen used to tell stories, directly, without decoration, trusting the thing itself to carry the weight. She does not have Keanu's personal address. She does not try to find it. She is not naive about the architecture of fame, the layers of people and systems that exist specifically to keep the world at a manageable distance. From very famous people, she addresses the letter to Company Films, Keanu's production company based in Los Angeles, and she marks it clearly on the outside of the envelope. Personal, not fan mail. Please forward. She is not confident it will reach him. She seals the envelope anyway. She stamps it. She puts on her coat, and she walks it to the post box on the corner of her street herself, rather than leaving it in her outgoing mail slot. Because after 38 years of doing nothing, she wants the deliberate physical act of letting it go. She stands at the post box for a moment with the envelope in her hand. She thinks of Dolores. She thinks, she may never forgive me. She posts the letter anyway. The letter reads, in full, "My name is Marisol Vega. I am 53 years old, and I live in Vancouver, British Columbia. You will not know my name, but I believe you knew my sister, Dolores Vega, in Toronto in 1984 and 1985. I am not writing to cause pain. I am not writing to ask for anything. I am writing because I am running out of reasons to keep the world from being more honest, and because I have been carrying the edge of a story that does not belong entirely to me for nearly 40 years, and I find that I am tired of the weight of it. There is something my sister should have the chance to tell you herself. She does not know I am writing this. She may be very angry when she finds out. I have made my peace with that. If you ever find yourself with a quiet afternoon and a brave enough heart, her address is below. I hope you are well. I think you probably are. I think you are the kind of person who finds a way to be well even when it is difficult. Dolores always said that about you, though not in those words. Marisol. The letter arrives at Company Films on January 19, 2024. It is opened by an assistant named Cora. Organized, careful. 10 years in the industry and therefore difficult to surprise. Who reads it twice, sets it aside, reads it a third time, and then walks it down the hallway to leave it on the right desk with a yellow sticky note that says only, "This one feels real." Keanu reads it that afternoon. He reads it standing up, which is how he reads things when he is not expecting them to matter, and then they do. He reads it twice. He folds it along its original creases. He stands at his desk for a moment, looking at the middle distance where there is nothing to look at except the wall, which is the way people look when they are seeing something that is not in the room. Then he puts the letter in his desk drawer. He closes the drawer. He goes back to work. He leaves it there for 6 weeks. This is not avoidance, exactly. Or it is avoidance, but the productive kind. The kind where you do not look at the thing directly yet, because you know that once you look at it directly, everything shifts, and you want to be ready for the shifting. He thinks about it on his motorcycle on Sunday mornings above Los Angeles, the city spread out below him in the early light. He thinks about it at dinner with Alexandra Grant, his partner, the visual artist with paint-stained hands and a way of listening that reminds him, sometimes, of someone else, though he could not have said exactly who until now. He does not tell Alexandra about the letter yet. This is not secrecy. It is the way some things need to be processed alone first, completely, before they are ready to be shared. Alexandra notices he is somewhere slightly else, and she does not push. This is one of the things about her that he loves most. She has the patience of someone who creates things from scratch and understands that not all processes are visible from the outside. He thinks about Dolores Vega. He has not thought of her with this much specific detail in years, not because she was forgotten, but because she was filed, as all the before-time things were filed, under the category of things that are over and belong to the past and cannot be changed. But Mattersol's letter has quietly reopened the file. And inside the file, now that it is open, things are present that he had not fully allowed himself to look at in a long time. The diner on Bloor Street, the Humber River in October, the way Dolores stepped back from the goodbye hug and said, "Go be who you are," with a steadiness that he had accepted at face value, because he was 20 years old and he needed it to be true. He thinks about that steadiness now with different eyes. The eyes of someone who has lived long enough to understand the difference between a person who feels nothing and a person who feels everything, and has simply decided not to show you all of it. Dolores had been the second kind. He understands this now in a way he could not at 20. Why was she so steady? He thinks. On the motorcycle, on the canyon road, on a clear February morning, with the sage smell in the air and the city below still small and quiet. What do you know? When you are that steady at a goodbye, that should not be steady. He does not have an answer. But he feels the question arriving in his body the way big questions arrive. Not in the mind first, but in the chest, in the hands, in the way the road ahead suddenly seems to require more attention than it did a moment ago. On a Thursday morning in early March 2024, he opens the desk drawer. He takes out the letter. He reads it one more time. Then he takes a piece of paper from the same drawer and he writes down the address that Mattersol has included at the bottom of her letter. A street in Pasadena, California. In his own handwriting, on his own paper, as if copying it out makes it more real, or more his, or more something he has actively chosen, rather than something that simply arrived. He folds his paper. He puts it in the chest pocket of his jacket. Closest to, he sits for a moment. Then he picks up his phone and he does something he almost never does in the daytime, on a weekday. He clears his afternoon. He does not call ahead. He thinks about this choice, and he makes it deliberately. If he calls ahead, Dolores has time to prepare a version of herself to present to him. She has time to decide in advance what to say and what not to say. She has time to build the careful architecture of a managed conversation. He does not want a managed conversation. He wants the door. He wants to knock on it and see what is on the other side before anyone has had the chance to arrange it. He wants, for the first time in a very long time, to be surprised by what is true. He puts on a jacket. He takes his keys. He does not take an assistant. He does not take a driver. He does not tell anyone where he is going, except Alexandra, to whom he says, "I need a few hours. I'll explain tonight." She looks at him. She says, "Okay." Just that. Okay. He walks out to his car. He gets in. He sits for a moment with his hands on the wheel before he starts the engine. The way a person sits before something they know is going to change things, taking one last breath of the before. Then he starts the engine. He pulls out of the driveway. He heads east, toward the 210 freeway, toward Pasadena, toward a door he has been driving toward, without knowing it, for 38 years. The 210 freeway heading east out of Los Angeles is not a dramatic road. It does not cut through mountains or run alongside the ocean or offer the kind of view that makes people pull over and take photographs. It is simply a freeway, wide and functional, and lined on both sides with the ordinary infrastructure of a large American city: office parks, overpasses, the backs of warehouses, fast food signs visible above the sound walls. The kind of road you drive 1,000 times and remember none of them, because there is nothing in particular to remember. But on this Tuesday morning in March 2024, Keanu Reeves is remembering everything. Not the road. The road is exactly as unmemorable as always. He is remembering Toronto in October. The particular smell of the Humber River when the leaves are turning. Cold water and wet earth and something sweet underneath, like the season itself is exhaling. He is remembering the cracked red vinyl of the booth at the Patrician on Bloor Street, and the way the overhead light made everything look slightly warmer than it was. He is remembering a kitchen on Roncesvalles Avenue that smelled of chiles and dish soap. He is remembering yellow tulips held carefully on a bus in the November dark. He is 59 years old. He has driven this stretch of the 210 dozens of times over the years, to locations, to meetings, to a friend's house in Arcadia, to the Rose Bowl when the occasion called for it. He knows this road. He knows the way the San Gabriel Mountains sit to the north, and he knows how they look in different seasons. Brown and bare in the dry months, green after winter rain, occasionally and surprisingly capped with snow in January and February, which always seems slightly improbable from the freeway below. Today they still have their winter snow, thin and white along the highest ridgelines, like something drawn in chalk. He watches them between checking his mirrors. He is not listening to music. He turned it off 10 minutes into the drive, without quite deciding to. The silence feels necessary. It feels like the right condition for what he is driving toward. Not music, not noise, not the distraction of someone else's words. Just the road and the mountains and the quiet in which a person can finally hear themselves think. He has been thinking, for the past 6 weeks, about what Marisol's letter actually said. Not the words. He has those memorized without trying. The way you memorize things that hit hard and keep hitting. He has been thinking about what the words mean underneath the words. There is something my sister should have the chance to tell you herself. Not, there is something you should know. Not, there is a fact that has been kept from you. Something she should have the chance to tell you. The phrasing is careful, deliberately so. Marisol Vega is a careful person. He can feel this in every sentence of her letter, in the deliberate plainness of it, in the way it says exactly what it means to say, and nothing additional. She has had 38 years to think about how to write this letter, and she has written it in simple declarative sentences, which is the choice of someone who trusts the truth to carry itself without theatrical assistance. Should have the chance. Not owes you. Not must. Should have the chance. As if telling him is something that would be good for Dolores. As if carrying the untold thing has cost Dolores something, over the years, that Marisol has watched being paid out slowly, without being able to stop it. He thinks about this. He passes the Azusa Avenue exit without noticing. He thinks about the life he knows he has lived, the losses, the grief, the rebuilding, the long stretches of ordinary days between the extraordinary ones. He thinks about Ava, his daughter, born and lost on the same December day, the grief of whom he has carried, in the specific wordless way, you carry something that never had the chance to become a memory, only an absence in the shape of a person. He thinks about what it means to miss someone you barely knew. He thinks about what it might mean, on the other side of that, to miss someone you never knew existed. He does not let himself complete this thought fully. Not yet. Not while he is driving. He takes the Lake Avenue exit. Pasadena opens around him immediately in the way Pasadena does. Wider streets, older trees, the particular unhurried quality of a city that has been here long enough to stop trying to prove anything. Spanish colonial buildings. Craftsman bungalows set back from the sidewalk behind deep front gardens. The San Gabriel Mountains now close enough that they feel like a presence rather than a backdrop. Large and permanent, and quietly indifferent to everything happening at their feet. He makes 3 turns following the address on the paper in his chest pocket, which he has looked at so many times in the past 6 weeks that he no longer needs to take it out. He turns onto a quiet residential street. The street is lined with jacaranda trees, bare of their famous purple flowers in March, which come later, in April and May, when the whole of Pasadena turns briefly and extravagantly violet. In March, the jacarandas are simply trees, tall and branching, full of green, providing the generous, uncomplicated shade that old trees provide without being asked. The houses on the street are modest, well kept. The kind of street where people have lived for a long time and have therefore made small personalizing additions, a particular mailbox, a hand-painted house number, a garden that has grown specifically rather than generically over many years. He finds the house. He pulls over. He turns off the engine. He sits in the car for 11 minutes. He knows this because he watches the clock on the dashboard without meaning to. Not impatiently, not counting down, just the way the eyes find something to rest on when the mind is working hard on something else. 11:43 a.m. 11:44 a.m. He looks at the house. It is a single-story bungalow, cream-colored stucco with a dark green front door. The garden is not large, but it is deeply, personally tended. Ceramic pots of varying sizes line both sides of the front path, each one planted with something different. Succulents in terracotta, trailing rosemary that has grown past its pot and started down the side. Bright red geraniums in a glazed blue pot near the door that are the most vivid thing on the street, so red they seem almost to produce their own light in the pale morning. The ceramic pots are clearly handmade. He looks at them for a moment. Of course they are. There are 2 wind chimes near the front door, one made of small pieces of sea glass in greens and blues, one made of what appears to be fragments of broken ceramic, glazed in terracotta and gold, hung so they touch and turn and occasionally catch the light. A small wooden bench sits beside the front door with a pair of garden gloves folded on it and a trowel leaning against the wall nearby. Someone lives here the way people live in places they have chosen and kept choosing. Over years, not a house maintained for appearances but a house inhabited, made specific by the accumulation of a particular person's particular attention. He looks at all of this. 11:51 a.m. 11:52 a.m. He is 59 years old. He has made more than 70 films. He has played heroes and villains and fools and gods and everything between. He has spoken in front of cameras for audiences of hundreds of millions of people. He has stood on stages. He has walked red carpets. He has sat in television studios and answered questions about himself for 30 years, with the specific kind of practiced ease that famous people develop because the alternative, genuine exposure, real vulnerability, the actual unmediated self available to anyone who cares to look, is too large a risk in too public a life. He has survived things that would have broken many people. He has not been broken. He has been, instead, slowly and repeatedly and very privately, remade. And yet, sitting outside this cream-colored bungalow on this quiet Pasadena street, with the jacaranda trees and the handmade ceramic pots, and the red geraniums that seem to produce their own light, he feels 19 years old. Not metaphorically, actually, in the body. The specific flutter in the chest that belongs to the very young and the very unguarded. The feeling that arrives before things that matter, before you have had time to prepare for them mattering. He breathes. He opens the car door. The path to the front door is perhaps 12 steps. He walks them slowly. Not because he is hesitant, but because he finds himself wanting to be present for each one. The crunch of the gravel. The smell of the rosemary brushing against his jacket sleeve as the path narrows slightly near the middle. The sea glass wind chimes moving in a small breath of March air, making their quiet glass-on-glass sound, like a question being asked very gently. He stops at the front door. The green paint is slightly weathered at the edges. The way paint weathers on doors that are opened and closed 10,000 times over many years by someone who is always coming or going, always returning, always home. It is, he thinks, a well-used door. A door that has seen a lot of life pass through it in both directions. He raises his hand. He knocks 3 times, not too loud. The knock of a person who has arrived, not the knock of a person demanding entrance. He waits. From inside the house, from somewhere toward the back. What sounds like a separate room, a studio perhaps, because the sounds are slightly different there, slightly more echoey and bare. There is the sound of movement, something set down on a hard surface. Footsteps coming through the interior of the house, unhurried. The footsteps of someone who is not expecting anyone particular and is therefore in no particular rush. He hears her before he sees her. Her footsteps stop on the other side of the door. A pause, 3 seconds, maybe 4, in which he imagines her checking through the small glass peephole set into the green paint just above eye level. He wonders what she sees. He wonders for one brief and almost comic moment whether she will simply not open the door, whether she will stand on her side and he will stand on his, and the green paint between them will remain, the whole story, the whole ending, and he will walk back down the 12 steps and get in his car and drive back to Los Angeles and file this under things that almost happened. Then he hears the lock. The door opens. Dolores Vega, now Dolores Ruiz, has been Dolores Ruiz for 31 years, though she will always be Dolores Vega in the part of her that belongs to before, stands in the doorway. She is 57 years old. Her hair is dark with rivers of silver running through it. Not the silver of someone who has given up on something, but the silver of someone who has earned it, which is a different thing entirely and visible as such. She is wearing a clay-stained canvas apron over a dark blue shirt, and her hands, both of them, held slightly away from her sides in the instinctive way of people who are used to working with their hands and are always aware of what is on them, are covered in wet clay to the mid-knuckle. She was working. She was in her studio at the back of the house, working, when the knock came. This detail matters somehow, that she was not sitting waiting, not positioned, not prepared, that she is clay-handed and apron-wearing and has a small streak of gray-brown clay along her left jawline, where she pushed her hair back without thinking. She is completely, entirely herself. Her eyes are warm and brown and unchanged. This is the thing that stops him for a half-second before he speaks. The eyes. 38 years is a long time. It does enough to a face, to a body, to the way a person holds themselves and moves through space. He expected change, and he can see the change, the years of it, the life of it, the way time writes its honest record on everyone who lives through it, without apology. But the eyes are the same. The exact same warm, clear, direct brown eyes that looked at him across a cracked red vinyl diner booth and said, "That's what home is supposed to feel like." He says, "Hi, Dolores." His voice comes out steady. He is quietly grateful for this. She looks at him. Her right hand comes up, slowly, involuntarily, the way hands move when the body reacts before the mind has caught up, and covers her mouth. The clay on her fingers leaves a small mark at the corner of her lips that neither of them notices for several minutes. Her eyes fill immediately, not spilling over, just full, the way eyes get when something arrives that is too large for a normal expression to contain, and the body improvises. She says, and her voice is almost steady, almost, but not quite. "How did you—" She stops. She already knows. He can see the moment she knows, the way the sentence redirects itself in her eyes before it reaches her mouth. "Marisol," she says. It is not a question. He nods. One beat of silence in which the street behind him continues its ordinary morning. A bird somewhere in the jacaranda trees. A car passing slowly 2 blocks away. The sea glass chimes turning in the small breath of air. And the silence between them is not empty but full. Completely full of 38 years of parallel living that is about to, finally, become a conversation. She steps back from the door. Not a word. Just a step back and a slight widening of the doorway. The oldest human gesture of welcome, as simple and as total as it has ever been. He steps inside. The green door closes behind him. Inside the house, the smell of cumin and dried herbs and clay and old wood and something sweet he cannot immediately name. On every shelf, ceramic pieces, bowls and figures and abstract shapes in terracotta and cobalt and pale white. On the windowsills, more pottery. And on the living room wall directly ahead, a large painting, dark and quiet, of a woman standing at the edge of a wide river, facing away, looking toward a horizon that the painter has left deliberately ambiguous, not threatening nor safe, simply open, simply there, simply waiting. He stops in front of it. He cannot help it. He stops and he looks at it for a long moment before either of them says another word. The painting is large, not enormous, not the kind of painting that dominates a room by sheer scale and demands you look at it whether you want to or not. It is large in the way that confident things are large, quietly, without announcement, taking up exactly the space it needs and no more. It is painted in oils, dark blues and deep greens, and a strip of pale gold along the upper edge that might be dawn or might be dusk. The painter has left this deliberately unresolved, the way certain truths are left deliberately unresolved because the resolution is not the point. The woman in the painting stands at the edge of a wide river. Her back is to the viewer. Her shoulders are straight but not rigid, the posture of someone who has made a decision and is living in the first moments after making it, before the world has had time to respond. The river stretches away from her toward a horizon that is open and gray and neither welcoming nor hostile, simply there, simply waiting. He stands in front of it for a long time. Behind him he can hear Dolores moving quietly into the kitchen. The sound of water running, the small domestic sounds of a person giving another person a moment alone with something. He is grateful for this without turning around to show it. He studies the painting the way he studies scripts, not for surface information, but for the thing underneath the surface. The feeling that the maker was trying to put somewhere outside themselves because it was too large to keep only inside, he says, without turning, "That's beautiful." Her voice comes from the kitchen doorway. "I painted it in 1986, she says. "I needed somewhere to put what I was feeling." He turns. She has removed the apron. She has washed her hands, mostly. There is still a thin line of gray clay at the edge of her left thumbnail that she has missed, and the small clay mark at the corner of her mouth is still there. She is holding 2 cups of coffee. She extends one toward him. He takes it. Their fingers do not touch in the handoff. They are both careful about this without discussing it. She leads him to the living room. Not the kitchen. The kitchen is too intimate, too loaded with the specific intimacy of kitchens, where real conversations happen whether you plan them to or not. She has chosen the living room deliberately. 2 chairs angled toward each other across a low table with a ceramic bowl on it filled with smooth river stones. Each one a different shade of gray and brown and occasional unexpected white. He sits. She sits. She is holding her coffee cup in both hands the way she used to hold her coffee cup in brown. The diner on Bloor Street, he notices. Both hands. The cup steadied between the palms rather than handled by the finger through the handle. The same gesture after 38 years. The body remembering what the mind has long since filed away. He notices this and says nothing about it. He looks around the room instead, giving her a moment to arrange herself into whatever version of herself she has decided to be for this conversation. The shelves of ceramic pieces. A guitar on a stand in the corner. Not a child's guitar, a proper adult instrument. A warm-toned acoustic, with a small chip on the upper bout, that has been there long enough that nobody thinks of fixing it anymore. A stack of books on the side table beside her chair. A photograph on the mantelpiece of a man with kind eyes and a slow smile, standing in what appears to be a museum, pointing at something off-frame with an expression of genuine delight. Tomas, he understands. He knows from Marisol's letter that Tomas died in 2018. He looks at the photograph for a moment, the way you look at photographs of people who loved the person sitting across from you, with the respect owed to the dead and to the living who carry them. Dolores follows his gaze to the mantelpiece. She says, "Tomas, he died 6 years ago." "I know," Keanu says. Marisol mentioned, "I'm sorry." She nods. He was a good man, the best kind. The kind that doesn't know they're good because it doesn't occur to them to be any other way. Those are the rarest kind, Keanu says. She looks at him. Yes, they are. A pause. The pause has weight, but not discomfort. It is the pause of two people who knew each other deeply once and are recalibrating, measuring the distance between who they were and who they are, and trying to find the thread that runs between the 2 points without being pulled off balance by the length of it. He is the one who opens the door. He does this on purpose. He has driven 40 minutes across Los Angeles, with a letter in his chest pocket, to stand at this door. He is not going to wait for her to lead him through it. That would not be fair. To ask the person who has been carrying the thing to also be the one to set it down first. He says, "Marisol wrote that there was something you needed to tell me." Dolores looks at her coffee cup. 1 beat. 2. He watches something happen on her face. The same thing he watched happen on her face in the diner on Bloor Street in February 1985, when she had already done her deciding before the conversation began. A settling, a gathering, the visible process of a person calling up everything they have and bringing it all the way to the surface. She sets her coffee cup down on the table beside the bowl of river stones. She folds her hands in her lap. She looks at him directly. "Sit forward a little," she says. "I need to be able to see your face." He sits forward. She takes one breath, slow, deliberate. The breath of someone about to say out loud the thing they have said 10,000 times in their own head, and never once in the actual air of the actual world. She says, "When you left Toronto in the spring of 1985, I was 6 weeks pregnant." The living room is very quiet. Outside, the jacaranda trees move in a small wind. The sea glass chimes at the front door make their soft glass-on-glass sound. Somewhere down the street, a dog barks once and stops. Inside, quiet. He does not move. He is sitting forward, as she asked, elbows on his knees, the coffee cup held in both hands between them. His face, she watches it carefully. She has been watching his face since she opened the door, cataloging it the way you catalog the face of someone you once knew completely and are now trying to reconcile with the person time has made them. His face does not collapse. It does not go red or white or twist into something sharp. It goes very still, the way deep water goes still. She continues. She has promised herself she will say all of it, not pieces, not the carefully edited version she has rehearsed at different points over the years. Softer here, clearer there, adjusted for imagined audiences. All of it. The whole true thing, start to finish, in the right order. So she tells him. She tells him about the pharmacy on Queen Street West. The fluorescent lights. The result she looked at for a very long time in a small tiled bathroom that smelled of industrial cleaner. She tells him about the weeks she carried it alone. Through their last conversation at the Patrician, through the goodbye on Roncesvalles Avenue, through the phone calls that crackled with distance, and the letters that dwindled, and the silence that followed. She tells him about the decision. She does not soften it or frame it as something other than what it was. She made a choice. She made it alone, deliberately, with full knowledge of what she was choosing and what she was giving up and what she was giving him that he did not ask for and would not have wanted, if he had known it was being given. She tells him she watched his films in darkened theaters while Sophia was small, that she sat in those seats and watched him become exactly what she had believed he would become, and felt two things simultaneously: a grief so specific and private it had no name, and a conviction so steady it never once wavered. I did the right thing. He gets to be free. He gets to be everything. She tells him about Tomas, about the Thursday evening ceramic workshop at the Armory Center for the Arts on West Colorado Boulevard, about Sophia at 6 years old, looking at this patient, kind man, and saying we can learn together, as if it were the most obvious and uncomplicated thing in the world, which, To Sophia it was, because Sophia has always approached the world with the assumption that it is fundamentally willing to meet her halfway. She tells him Tomas adopted Sophia in 1994, and that Tomas was her father in every way that the word has ever meant. Anything, present, attentive, consistent, proud, infuriating, in the specific way that good fathers are infuriating because they hold you to a standard that has nothing to do with achievement and everything to do with character. She tells him Tomas died of a heart attack in March 2018, in the kitchen of this house, on a Wednesday morning, with a cup of coffee in his hand, which is exactly the way Tomas would have chosen to go if anyone had asked him, because he was always most himself in the kitchen on an ordinary morning. She tells him Sophia is 38 years old and teaches music at a middle school in Glendale, and has her mother's eyes and a laugh that fills rooms, like sunlight, and plays guitar the way people play guitar when it is not a hobby but a language. She tells him Sophia does not know. Here her voice changes slightly. Not breaking, she will not allow it to break, not yet. Not in the middle of the telling, but changing in the way voices change when they arrive at the part of the story that costs the most. She doesn't know, Dolores says. I have been trying to understand for 38 years whether telling her would be a gift or a wound. I have turned it over 10,000 times. I have started sentences in my head and not finished them. I have picked up the phone and put it down. I have stood in her doorway while she was sleeping and looked at her face and tried to find the right words and not found them. She pauses. I still don't know the answer, she says. Whether it is a gift or a wound, I think it might be both. I think the most important truths usually are. Throughout all of this, the pharmacy, the decision, the films in the darkened theater, Tomas, the adoption, the 38 years of turning it over. Keanu has not said a single word. He is looking at the bowl of river stones on the table between them. Dolores watches him look at them. She has had those stones since 1987. She collected them from the Arroyo Seco riverbed in Pasadena, a wide, mostly dry concrete channel that becomes a real river after heavy rain, running fast and brown and cold through the middle of the city, carrying everything down from the mountains. She picked up each stone individually over several years, choosing them for no reason she could explain, except that each one felt right in the hand, smooth and real and specific, each one exactly itself. She watches Keanu look at them and she thinks, in the particular sideways way the mind moves during large moments, finding small things to rest on so it doesn't have to hold the whole large thing at once. She thinks that this is what the past 38 years have felt like, a riverbed. Things carried down from a distance by forces larger than yourself, arriving smooth and specific in your hands, each one exactly what it is. He looks up from the stones. His eyes are wet, not spilling over, just full. The same fullness she saw in her own eyes in the pharmacy bathroom in February 1985, when she understood the full shape of what she was facing. He says, "What's her name?" His voice is quiet and completely steady, and it costs him something to keep it that way. She can hear the cost of it. Sophia, Dolores says. Sophia Elena Ruiz. She pauses. She was born September 14, 1985. She is 38 years old. And these two sentences, this name, this date, this age, is the thing that finally breaks the stillness. Not loudly, not dramatically. He does not stand up or put his face in his hands or make a sound of any kind. He simply closes his eyes, just for a moment, 4 seconds, 5. Behind his closed eyes he is doing the arithmetic that he cannot stop himself from doing. September 14, 1985. 9 months from December 1984. 6 weeks after he left Toronto in March. A child conceived in the last warmth of what they had together, before the taxi came and the wet street took him, and he spent 38 years telling himself the door was still slightly open, when in fact, the door had been quietly, lovingly, permanently closed by someone who believed, with all of herself, that closing it was the only way to set him free. He opens his eyes. "You protected her," he says. He says it slowly, each word placed carefully. The way you place weight on ice, you are not entirely sure will hold. You protected her from the chaos of my life in those years. The instability, the not knowing if any of it would work, the losing people. He pauses. "I lost River in 1993, he says, "Jennifer in 2001, my daughter in 1999. He says my daughter the way people say things they have never said in quite this context before, feeling the phrase differently in his mouth than he expected, because it has always meant Ava, his lost daughter. But now it reaches further. Now it means something additional, that he is only just beginning to understand the full weight of." Dolores is very still. "If Sophia had been in the middle of all of that," he continues, "if she had been present for those years, the instability of the early career, the grief, the losing, the very public life that I never found a way to make smaller." He stops. He looks at the painting on the wall, the woman at the river's edge, the open horizon. "I don't know what that would have looked like," he says quietly. "For her. I don't know who she would have become inside all of that. You gave her something I could not have given her. A quiet life, a real father, a kitchen that smells like," he almost smiles, "chiles and dish soap." Dolores makes a sound that is not quite a laugh, and not quite a sob, but somewhere between the two. The sound of a person who has waited 38 years for someone to understand something and has just, unexpectedly, been understood. He looks back at her. "You made a terrible, painful, loving choice," he says. "And I think, and this is the hardest thing I have ever said out loud, I think it was probably the right one." The room is quiet for a long moment. Then Dolores gets up. She goes to a shelf, not the main shelf, the one in the corner near the window, lower down, at the level where a child's hands could reach. She takes something from it and comes back and sets it on the low table between them, beside the bowl of river stones. It is a small clay figure, a bird, sitting on a round base, wings slightly raised, not fully open, not folded closed, but caught in the in-between moment. The moment just before the decision to fly is made or unmade, when both possibilities still exist simultaneously. It is the work of a child. You can see this in the slight unevenness of the wings, the way the base is not quite circular, the fingerprints pressed into the clay during the making that were not smoothed away but left, preserved, the evidence of the maker's hands still present in the finished thing. "Sophia made this," Dolores says, "in my pottery class. She was 7 years old. She was the youngest student I ever taught." He looks at the bird. He does not pick it up immediately. He looks at it the way he looked at the painting, for the thing underneath the surface, for the feeling the maker was putting somewhere outside themselves. Then he says, "Can I hold it?" "Yes," Dolores says. He picks it up, both hands, carefully, the way he carried yellow tulips on a bus in Toronto in November 1984, because he did not want them to bend. He holds the small clay bird in his palms, and he looks at it for a long time, and the room is quiet around him, and Dolores watches him hold it, and does not say anything because there is nothing to say that the moment is not already saying for itself. Then he says the thing that Dolores will call Marisol about that evening, her voice slightly unsteady for the first time in the whole conversation, unsteady in the way of someone reporting something they are still processing, something that arrived and has not yet fully settled. The thing Marisol will tell her own daughter, the thing her daughter will write in a journal that still exists, in a house in Vancouver, on a shelf beside a window that looks out at mountains. He says, "You made the call I couldn't make for myself. You looked at what I was going to become before I could see it. And you made the call that protected all of it. Her childhood, my becoming, the life she got to live without the weight of my chaos pressing down on it from the beginning. He pauses. He looks at the bird in his hands. I have been angry at a lot of things in my life, he says. A lot of losses. A lot of things that happened the wrong way or too early or too finally. He looks up. I am not angry at you, he says. I want you to know that. I am not angry. I am… He stops. He tries again. I am 38 years late to something, he says. And I would like, if you're willing, and only if you're willing, to figure out what that means. From here, going forward, whatever that looks like. Dolores is crying now, not loudly, silently, the way she cried in the kitchen on Roncesvalles Avenue at 2 in the morning in 1985. Steadily, without performance, tears simply arriving and being allowed to arrive without apology or commentary. She nods. She says, she deserves to know the truth, whatever it costs. She deserves the whole true thing. Yes, he says, she does. He stays for 2 hours. They drink 3 cups of coffee between them. They talk about Sophia, her students, her guitar, the laugh that fills rooms, the way she approaches everything with the assumption that the world is willing to meet her halfway. They talk about Tomas. They talk, carefully and briefly, about Ava. Dolores asks, and he answers in the small, careful sentences he keeps that grief in, and she does not push past them. They talk about Rodrigo and Carmen, both gone now, Rodrigo in 2009, Carmen in 2015, both in their 80s, both in the house on Roncesvalles Avenue until the end. The flower shop kept going by a nephew who still changes the window display every week, because Rodrigo believed people needed to see something beautiful when they walked past. At one point, Dolores laughs at something. A small story about Sophia at 10 years old, arguing with a music teacher about chord theory with the absolute unself-conscious certainty of someone who knows they are right even though they are 10. And the laugh is the same. Completely, exactly the same laugh that echoed in an empty theater hall in Toronto in the fall of 1984, when a tall, dark-haired boy arrived early for an audition, and a girl on a ladder looked down at him and decided he was worth a moment of her attention. He notices this. He says nothing about it. Some things you simply receive quietly. When he finally stands to leave, they are both steadier than when he arrived. Not lighter. The weight has not gone anywhere. It does not go anywhere just because it is named. It simply becomes a weight you are carrying together instead of alone. But steadier. The difference between carrying something in one hand and carrying it in two. He stands in the living room and looks once more at the painting on the wall. The woman at the river. The open horizon. When you painted this, he says, 1986. What were you feeling? She looks at it with him. That I had made a choice I couldn't unmake, she says, and that I was going to have to learn to live forward from it, facing whatever was ahead, without knowing what it was. He nods slowly. Does it still feel that way? He asks. She considers this honestly. No, she says. Now when I look at it, I see someone who decided to be brave. It took me a long time to see it that way, but that's what I see now. He looks at the painting one more moment. Good, he says quietly. That's what I see too. He asks, at the door, if he can come back. She says yes. He asks if she will speak to Sophia before his next visit. Not to arrange anything, not to engineer an outcome, but simply to give Sophia the truth and the choice that comes with it. The choice to know or not know. The choice to meet him or not meet him. Sophia's choice entirely. No pressure attached. No expectation. Give me 2 weeks, Dolores says. Take whatever time you need, he says. He steps out onto the front path. The sea glass chimes move. The red geraniums are very red in the afternoon light. Redder than they were the morning. Or perhaps the light has simply changed. The way light changes over the course of a day that has held more than most days hold. He walks the 12 steps back to the car. He gets in. He sits with his hands on the wheel. On the passenger seat beside him, The small clay bird sits in a nest of his jacket that he folded around it before leaving. Dolores had pressed it into his hands when he stood to leave, had said, "Take it, please. I want you to have it." And he had accepted it with both hands, the same way he had held it. The same way he carries all the fragile, specific, irreplaceable things that have been placed in his keeping over the years. Carefully. Like someone who knows, from long experience, exactly how much can be lost when you are not careful enough with the things that matter. He looks at the bird for a moment. Then he starts the engine. He pulls slowly away from the curb. The jacaranda trees stand tall and green on both sides of the quiet street, full of the purple flowers that are coming, that are always coming, that arrive every year without fail in April and May, and turn the whole of Pasadena briefly and extravagantly violet. Not yet, but soon. 2 weeks later, on a Sunday morning that smells of pastry from a bakery on Brand Boulevard, a daughter drives to her mother's house in Pasadena. She does this almost every Sunday. She does not know that this Sunday is different from all the other Sundays. She does not know that what is waiting for her at the kitchen table, the one with the ring stains and the small crack along one edge, is the whole true story of where she comes from. She does not know, but she is about to. The 2 weeks between Keanu's visit and this Sunday morning are the longest 2 weeks of Dolores Ruiz's life. This is not a small claim. She has lived through the 2 weeks after Keanu left Toronto in 1985, carrying a secret she had just decided to keep. She has lived through the 2 weeks after Tomas's diagnosis in early 2018, before the doctors confirmed what they already feared. She has lived through grief and waiting, and the specific torture of knowing something terrible that has not yet fully arrived. She knows what long 2 weeks feel like. These are longer, because this is not grief. Grief, for all its weight, is at least familiar in its shape. You know what you are carrying. You know why it is heavy. You know that the carrying is necessary, and that time, imperfect and insufficient as it is, will eventually do something to the edges of it. This is different. This is the 2 weeks of carrying a truth that belongs to someone else. A truth that has been yours to hold for 38 years, and is about to, finally, be given to the person it was always about. And you do not know, cannot know, will not know until the moment it happens, whether the giving will feel like relief, or devastation, or both simultaneously. Which is the most likely answer, and therefore the most frightening. She cleans the house on Thursday. Not because it needs cleaning. Dolores keeps the house the way she keeps her studio and her ceramic work, with the specific tidiness of a person who needs their external environment to be orderly so that their internal environment can afford to be as complex as it actually is. The house is already clean. She cleans it anyway. She washes the kitchen floor on her hands and knees the way Carmen used to wash floors, which Dolores always thought was unnecessary until she found herself doing it at moments of high emotion and understood for the first time that it was never about the floor. She reorganizes the shelf in the living room, the low corner one near the window where the clay bird used to sit, now empty since she gave it to Keanu. She moves things around. A small vase, a bowl, a ceramic figure of a seated woman that Sophia made at 14 and presented to Dolores with the critical assessment of a teenager. The proportions are off, but the feeling is right. She puts the seated woman in the center of the shelf where the bird used to be. She stands back and looks at it. The feeling is right. Yes, she thinks. That's Sophia exactly. The proportions sometimes off. The feeling always right. On Friday evening, she calls Marisol. She has not called her since the day she pieced together what Marisol had done. A deduction rather than a confession. Keanu saying Marisol and Dolores understanding everything in that single syllable, the way you understand things about people you have known since they were born. The phone rings 4 times. Marisol answers with the particular slightly braced quality of someone who has been waiting for this call, and is not entirely sure which version of it is about to arrive. Dolores, she says. He came, Dolores says. A pause. I know, Marisol says quietly. I mean, I didn't know, but I hoped. You should have told me you were writing to him. Yes, Marisol says. I should have. A longer pause. Dolores sits at the kitchen table, the one with the ring stains and the small crack along the edge, and looks at the surface of it, all those ring stains, all those cups of coffee held over all those years of ordinary mornings, in this kitchen that has been the center of her life since 1994. Are you angry? Marisol asks. Dolores thinks about this honestly, the way she thinks about all important questions, taking her time, not reaching for the easy answer. No, she says finally. I think I am. Relieved, which I did not expect. She hears Marisol exhale. I'm telling Sophia on Sunday, Dolores says. She comes every Sunday. I'm going to tell her when she arrives before I lose my nerve. Do you want me to come? No, Dolores says. This is between me and my daughter. Okay, Marisol says. But Marisol, yes. Thank you, Dolores says, for being braver than I was. I'm not sure I would ever have found my way to this without someone pushing the door open first. Marisol is quiet for a moment. Then she says, You were always brave enough. You just needed to be done being alone with it. On Saturday, Dolores goes to her studio. She works for 6 hours without stopping. Hands in clay, the wheel turning, the particular meditative state that working with her hands has always given her, that state in which the thinking mind steps back and something older and quieter takes over, something that knows things the thinking mind cannot access directly. She makes 3 bowls, not because she needs 3 bowls, because the making of them is the thing. The centering of the clay on the wheel, that specific act of applying even pressure from all sides, simultaneously until the wobbling, off-balance mass finds its still point and rises true, has always felt to her like the physical description of what she is trying to do inside herself. Find the still point. Rise true. By the time she finishes, it is late afternoon, and the light in the studio is the particular gold of a California March afternoon, and her arms are tired in the good way, and she feels not ready exactly. She is not sure you can ever be ready for something like this, but settled, grounded, like clay that has been properly centered before the shaping begins. Sunday morning. She is up at 5:30. She does not sleep past 5:30 on ordinary Sundays, and this Sunday she does not sleep past 4, lying in the dark in the bedroom, where Tomas's side of the bed still feels like his side, where she still reaches for him sometimes in the first half-second before fully waking. She does not reach for him this morning. She lies on her back with her eyes open and she talks to him. This is something she does not speak about to anyone, not even Marisol. She talks to Tomas. Not in a mystical way. She is not a person who believes exactly in the literal presence of the dead in the rooms of the living, but she believes in the continued relevance of people who shaped you, in the way their voice stays accessible even after the source is gone, in the way you can ask someone a question and hear, from somewhere inside yourself, an answer that is genuinely theirs, because they put it there over 30 years of being known by them. She says, I'm telling her today. She listens to the dark, Tomas says, in the way he always says things in these conversations, in his own measured, unhurried cadence. She already knows, mija, she has always known. You are not telling her something new, you are giving her permission to know it out loud. Dolores lies with this. Yes, she thinks. Yes, I think that's right. She gets up at 5:30. She makes tamales. Carmen's recipe. The one she has made from memory since 1989, when Carmen sat beside her at the stove and walked her through every step not once but twice. The second time with her hands behind her back, so Dolores had to do it entirely herself. You need to know it in your hands, Carmen had said. Not just your head, in your hands. She makes the masa. She prepares the filling, slow-cooked pork and red chile, the smell of it filling the house by 8 in the morning and settling into the walls and the curtains and the particular soft air of this kitchen, the way it always does. She folds them into their corn husks. She arranges them in the steamer. She sets the timer. Then she sits at the kitchen table and she waits. Sofia Ruiz leaves her apartment in Glendale at 9:15. She stops at the bakery on Brand Boulevard, a small place run by a family who have had it for 20 years, where the pastries are made at 4 in the morning and by 9 they are perfect, and by noon they are gone. She buys a paper bag of conchas, the sweet Mexican bread rolls with the scored sugar topping, Dolores's favorite, has been since childhood, and a smaller bag with 2 churro twists for herself, because she has never in her adult life successfully passed the churro twist without buying one. She gets back in her car. She merges onto the 134 freeway, heading west toward Pasadena. It is a beautiful morning, the kind of Southern California morning in March that reminds you why people come here from everywhere else and stay. Clear and bright, the mountains close and snow-capped and impossibly sharp against the blue sky, the air carrying the particular freshness of morning before the heat of the afternoon has had time to flatten it. Sofia has the windows down. She is playing guitar through the car speakers, not a recording, not a playlist, but a voice memo of herself playing something she has been working on, a piece she is composing for one of her students, a 12-year-old girl named Paloma, who has a gift she doesn't know yet, is a gift because nobody has found the right words to tell her so. Sofia is trying to write something that will show Paloma her own gift from the outside, a piece just difficult enough that playing it well will require Paloma to understand, for the first time, what she is capable of. The piece is almost right. There is one passage in the middle that isn't there yet. She can hear what it should be, but hasn't landed it on the frets. She listens to herself play, and thinks about the middle passage, and watches the mountains, and does not know that today is different. She turns onto her mother's street at 9:48. She notices, before she is fully parked, that the geraniums in the blue-glazed pot by the front door are extraordinary this morning. An almost aggressive red in the bright March light, the kind of red that insists on being noticed. She sits in the car for a moment looking at them. She bought those geraniums for her mother 3 years ago from a nursery on Foothill Boulevard, stuck them in the back seat wrapped in newspaper, carried them up the front path, dug the hole herself in the glazed pot that Dolores had made in the studio. She remembers Dolores saying, "Red is the most alive color. Every garden should have something that red." She gets out of the car with the 2 paper bags. She lets herself in with her key. She has had a key since Tomas died. Since Dolores is here alone now and they both feel better with Sofia having a key without either of them saying this directly. "Mama?" "Kitchen," Dolores calls. The smell hits her immediately when she opens the door. Tamales. She stops in the hallway. Her mother makes tamales for occasions. Not for ordinary Sundays. For occasions. Christmas. Birthdays. The anniversary of Rodrigo's death, when the whole family used to gather and eat the things he loved most. The day Sofia got her teaching position. The day Tomas came home from the hospital after his first small cardiac event in 2015, and they sat in this kitchen, all 4 of them, Dolores, Tomas, Sofia, and Sofia's then-boyfriend Marco, who didn't last but was present for this, and ate tamales, and didn't talk about how frightened they had all been. Sofia stands in the hallway with the paper bags in her hand, and she smells tamales, and something shifts in her chest. A small, quiet shift, like a gear engaging. She goes to the kitchen doorway. Dolores is standing at the stove with her back to the door, checking the steamer. She is wearing a blue dress, not her studio clothes, not her everyday clothes, a dress. She has her hair down. Sofia notes all of this. She sets the paper bags on the counter. She says, "You made tamales." "Yes," Dolores says. She turns from the stove. Her face is composed and open, and there is something in it that Sofia cannot immediately name. Not distress exactly, not happiness exactly. Something between the two that has the quality of both simultaneously. Sophia looks at her mother. She has spent 38 years reading this face. She knows every version of it. The working face, the worried face, the laughing face, the grief face in those months after Tomas, the proud face at every recital, and every small victory Sophia has brought home like collected stones to lay at her mother's feet. She does not know this face. This is a new face. She says, "Mama, what is it?" Dolores takes the chair at the kitchen table, her usual chair, the one facing the window. She holds the edge of the table with both hands, not gripping, just touching, anchoring. She says, "Sit down, mija." Sophia sits. She folds her hands on the table. She is suddenly very still in the way she gets still when something important is happening. The same stillness her mother and grandfather and three of her closest friends have all independently described as Sophia's superpower, this capacity to become completely quiet and present at the moments when most people become loud and scattered. She waits. Dolores begins. She does not begin at the beginning, at the pharmacy, at the fluorescent lights, at the results she looked at for a long time. She begins where it actually begins, which is further back, in a theater hall in Toronto in the fall of 1984, where a girl on a ladder with paint on her fingers looked down at a boy who arrived early because he was afraid of being late and laughed a real laugh that echoed in the empty hall. She talks for a long time. She tells it in order. She does not rush it. She does not abbreviate the parts that are difficult or skip past the parts where she does not come off well. She tells it the way her father Rodrigo used to tell stories, directly, without decoration, trusting the thing itself to be enough. Sophia does not interrupt. She sits with her hands folded and her face open, and she listens with the particular full-body attention that she also brings to her students when they play. Not evaluating, not preparing a response, simply receiving what is being offered as completely as possible. Dolores tells her about the pharmacy, the decision, the taxi on the wet street, the silence that followed. She tells her about watching his films in darkened theaters with a baby on her lap. She tells her about Tomas, how she has been afraid, all these years, that telling Sophia the truth would somehow diminish what Tomas was. How she could not find a way to give Sophia the full truth, without feeling like she was taking something away from the man who showed up every single day of Sophia's childhood, and never once made her feel like anything other than the most important person in any room he was in. He was your father, Dolores says. Nothing I tell you today changes that. I need you to know I know that. I need you to know that was never a question for me. Sophia's eyes are full, but she has not cried yet. She is listening. Dolores tells her about Marisol's letter, about a knock on the green front door on a Tuesday morning in March 2024, about clay on her hands, and a face she recognized in the first half-second, despite 38 years of time, having passed over it like water over a stone, smoothing some things, deepening others, leaving the essential shape exactly what it always was. She tells her, "He sat in that chair." She points to the chair across from her, the chair Sophia is sitting in. "He sat where you are sitting," Dolores says. "And he held the bird you made when you were 7. He held it in both hands, and he was kind. He was so—" Her voice breaks here, just slightly, just enough to show the fault line. She steadies. "He was kind," she says again. "The way I always knew he would be. The way I always—" She stops. "He wants to meet you," she says. "If you want that. Only if you want that. There is no pressure, there is no—" "Mama," Sophia says. Dolores stops. Sophia unfolds her hands from the table. She reaches across the small space between them, the kitchen table with the ring stains and the small crack along the edge that has been there since 2003, when Tomas dropped a ceramic pot on it, and they kept meaning to fix it, and never did, and eventually, it simply became part of the table. part of the record of this kitchen, part of the evidence of a life actually lived here rather than simply displayed. She reaches across this table and she takes her mother's hands, both of them. She holds them, she looks at her mother's face, the new face, the one Sophia has never seen before, that is both distress and relief simultaneously. And she says, "Mama, you've been carrying this for 38 years?" Dolores nods. "Alone?" "Mostly," Dolores says. Marisol knew, suspected. We never said it directly. Sophia looks at their joined hands on the table. She is quiet for a long moment. Dolores waits. She has promised herself she will not fill this silence. Whatever Sophia needs from this silence, she is owed it completely and without interruption. Sophia looks up. She says, "Dad was my father." "Yes," Dolores says immediately, firmly, completely, always. "Nothing changes that," Sophia says. "Nothing," Dolores says. Sophia nods slowly. "But," she says, and here she pauses, and in the pause Dolores holds completely still. "I think I want to know who I am, the whole thing, all the way back." She squeezes her mother's hands. "I think I've always wanted that," she says. "I just didn't know how to want it out loud." Dolores starts to cry. Not the silent, controlled tears of the kitchen on Roncesvalles Avenue at 2 in the morning in 1985. Not the steady private tears of someone determined not to be seen. Actual crying, with sound, with her face doing the unguarded things faces do when they have been holding an expression in place for 38 years and are finally allowed to put it down. Sophia gets up. She goes around the table. She does not say anything. There is nothing to say that the moment does not already contain. She simply goes to her mother, and she puts her arms around her from behind, the way you hold someone when you understand for the first time, fully, in the body, not just in the understanding mind but in the bone. What they have been carrying alone, and for how long. She holds her. Dolores grips her daughter's arms. They stay like this for a long time. The steamer on the stove ticks softly. The morning light comes through the kitchen window at its particular March angle, falling across the table with the ring stains and the crack, making the surface of it look almost golden. Outside, the red geraniums in the blue-glazed pot are very red. When Dolores is steadier, Sophia sits back down. She wipes her mother's face with the sleeve of her own shirt in the completely unself-conscious way of someone who has been doing this since childhood, since the months after Tomas died, when she came every day and brought food and sat in this kitchen and wiped her mother's face and did not pretend this was not happening, because Sophia has always believed that the most loving thing you can do for someone is to be fully present for the thing that is actually happening, rather than the more comfortable thing you wish were happening instead. She says, "Tell him I'll meet him." Dolores looks at her. "Are you sure?" she says. Not because she doubts Sophia. Because she has spent 38 years being the person who decided things on behalf of everyone else, and she will not do it again. She will ask. She will wait for the answer. She will accept whatever it is. "Yes," Sophia says. Simply, completely, in the way Sophia does most things that matter. "You don't have to, Mama," Sophia says gently. "I'm 38 years old. I teach 36 graders every day, who are all more chaotic than this. I can handle meeting a person." The smallest possible flicker of a smile at the corner of Dolores's mouth. "He's not just a person," Dolores says. "To me he is," Sophia says. "Until I decide otherwise, he is just a person who shares some of my DNA and apparently has very good taste in movies." And here, finally, after everything, after 38 years of a secret and 2 weeks of waiting and a morning of tamales and crying and holding, Dolores laughs. A real laugh. Her real laugh. The one that echoes. The one that has not changed in 38 years. They eat the tamales. They sit at the kitchen table in the bright March morning, and they eat and they talk. Not only about Keanu, not about the weight of what has just been set down between them, but about ordinary things too. Sophia's student, Paloma, and the piece she is writing for her. A ceramic piece Dolores is working on in the studio. The geraniums, which Sophia says are the reddest she has ever seen them. And Dolores says she has been watering them more carefully lately, which they both understand is not really about the geraniums. They eat conchas from the paper bag. The churro twists Sophia bought for herself are shared equally between them without discussion. Outside, the Sunday morning does its ordinary Sunday morning things. Neighbors walking dogs, a child on a bicycle, the distant sound of a church bell from somewhere toward Lake Avenue. Inside, two women sit at a kitchen table after a conversation that has been 38 years in the arriving, and eat sweet bread and talk in the comfortable half-sentences of people who know each other well enough not to need whole ones. Before Sophia leaves, she stops in the living room. She looks at the low shelf in the corner near the window, the one where the small clay bird used to sit. It is empty now except for the seated ceramic woman with the slightly off proportions and the exactly right feeling. She looks at the empty space where the bird used to be. She says, "Where's the bird, the one I made when I was 7? Dolores stands in the doorway. "I gave it to someone," she says. Sophia looks at her. "To him," she says. "Yes," Dolores says. "I wanted him to have something of yours. Something real. Something you made with your hands." Sophia looks at the empty space for a moment. Then she nods. "Good," she says. "Just that. Good." She picks up her keys from the side table. She hugs her mother at the door. Long, real, the kind of hug that says multiple things simultaneously and does not need to choose between them. She walks down the front path past the geraniums. She gets in her car. She sits for a moment before starting the engine, looking at the windshield, at the street beyond it, at the ordinary Sunday morning, continuing without pause, around the edges of the extraordinary thing that just happened inside that house. She starts the engine. She pulls away. She is 3 blocks away before she allows herself to fully feel it. The enormity of what she now knows. The strangeness and the weight of it. The way it does and does not change everything simultaneously. She thinks about the photograph. The one in her wallet. The theater backdrop. Her mother young and laughing. A dark-haired boy, walking into the frame, mid-laugh, unaware. She has carried that photograph for 25 years, in every wallet she has owned since she was 14 years old, and found it in a shoebox on the top shelf of her mother's closet when she was looking for a winter scarf. She pulls over. She opens her wallet. She takes the photograph out. It is small and folded now, creased with years of being carried, the image slightly worn at the fold lines, but still clear, still him, still her mother, still the theater that smelled of paint and sawdust and the specific exciting smell of things being made. She looks at it for a long time. Then she folds it carefully and puts it back. She pulls out into the Sunday traffic. She is going to meet her father. Not today, but soon. And she has been ready for this. She understands now. For 25 years. 2 weeks from this Sunday morning. On a bright April Saturday, Keanu Reeves will drive east again on the 210 freeway. He will park on the quiet street with the jacaranda trees. He will walk the 12 steps to the green front door. He will knock. And when the door opens, it will not be Dolores standing there alone. It will be Sophia. And in Sophia's wallet, folded small, worn at the creases with 25 years of being carried, is the secret that will leave him speechless. The secret nobody knew she had been keeping. The secret that changes the shape of everything. The jacaranda trees on Dolores's street are in bloom. It happens every year in Pasadena. This brief, extravagant, almost unreasonable explosion of purple that arrives in April and stays through May, and turns the whole city into something that doesn't look entirely real. Visitors photograph it constantly. Residents who have lived here 30 years still stop on sidewalks and look up. It is the kind of beauty that does not become ordinary, no matter how many times you see it, because it is always, somehow, slightly more than you remembered. The trees lining the quiet street are fully purple this morning. Every branch, every cluster. The fallen petals on the sidewalk below making a second, ground-level version of the same purple, so that walking under them feels like passing through something, a threshold, a doorway made of color and light, and the particular sweetness of jacaranda flowers. That is one of the few smells in Los Angeles that is genuinely, uncomplicatedly good. Keanu notices all of this as he parks. He notices it the way he noticed the geraniums on his first visit, with the specific attention of someone who has learned, through long experience of loss, that beauty is not a backdrop. It is not the scenery behind the important things. It is itself important. It is itself the thing. The jacaranda trees are not decorating this morning. They are participating in it. He sits in the car, this time for only 4 minutes. He knows because he watches the clock, as he always does now on this street, and he notices the difference. 11 minutes last time, 4 minutes this time, and understands what the difference means. Not that he is less nervous, he is nervous, but the nervousness is different in character from last time. Last time it was the nervousness of the unknown, the door not yet opened, the face not yet seen, the 38 years of silence not yet broken. This time he knows what is behind the door, or he thinks he does. He is about to discover that he does not know everything behind the door. Not yet. He gets out of the car. He walks the 12 steps. He has brought nothing with him except himself. No flowers, no gift, no carefully chosen object to present as an opening statement. He considered this and decided against all of it. A gift would be a performance. A carefully chosen object would be a message. And he does not want to send Sophia a message before she has had the chance to decide for herself what kind of conversation this is going to be. He simply brings himself. 59 years old. 1 bag. 1 backpack. No famous family. Except that is not quite right anymore, is it? Except that the story has changed. Except that the inventory of what he carries with him turns out to be longer than he knew. He raises his hand. He knocks. 3 times. The same knock as before. Not too loud. The knock of a person who has arrived, not demanding entrance. Inside the house, Sophia Ruiz hears the knock. She is standing in her mother's living room, beside the low shelf in the corner near the window. The one with the seated ceramic woman, the one with the empty space where a clay bird used to sit. She has been standing here for approximately 3 minutes, which she knows because she has been watching the clock on the mantelpiece with the specific involuntary attention of someone whose body is tracking time independently of their conscious mind. She is wearing a yellow dress. She chose it this morning at her apartment in Glendale, standing in front of her open wardrobe for longer than she normally stands anywhere, and she chose yellow because it is the color she wears when she needs to feel like herself. Not a version of herself assembled for an occasion, actually herself. The yellow dress is the dress she wore to Tomas's memorial gathering in 2018. The dress she wore the first day she walked into her classroom at the middle school in Glendale and looked at 36th graders and felt the particular terrifying joy of knowing you are exactly where you are supposed to be. The dress that means, I am here, all of me, whatever happens. She left her guitar at home. She almost brought it. She got as far as picking it up from its stand and then set it back down and laughed at herself, quietly, in the empty apartment. You cannot bring a guitar to this, Sophia. What would you even do with it? Though part of her knew exactly what she would do with it, which is the same thing she does with it whenever she does not have words adequate to what she is feeling. But she left it. This conversation needs words. She has words. Dolores comes from the kitchen to the hallway. She stops when she sees Sophia still standing in the living room, not moving toward the door, not calling out, just standing there in the yellow dress with her hands at her sides and her face carrying the expression that Dolores has been cataloging for 38 years. The one that means Sophia is doing the thing she does that nobody taught her and nobody could teach, gathering herself completely into the present moment, all of her arriving at once, nothing held back and nothing performed. Dolores looks at her daughter. She looks at her for one long moment. The yellow dress, the warm brown eyes, the jaw set with quiet determination, the hands that are still at the sides but slightly open, slightly ready. She thinks, Tomas would be so proud right now. She thinks, I am so proud right now, she says softly. You ready? Sophia looks at her. No, she says. Honest, as always. First, then, yes. She walks to the door. She opens it. Keanu Reeves is standing on the front path. He is wearing a dark jacket over a simple shirt. He has not dressed for an occasion either. He is simply himself, the version of himself that exists when nobody is performing anything, which is the version that people who have worked closely with him describe as the most surprising and the most real. Older than his films sometimes make him look, quieter in person than the screen suggests, present in the specific way of someone who has learned, through everything, to be completely in the room they are actually in. He sees Sophia. He stops. Not a dramatic stop, not a step backward, not a hand to the mouth. Simply the stopping of forward motion, the body registering something before the mind has processed it. She is tall. She has Dolores's warm brown eyes, the unchanged eyes, the eyes he recognized in the first half-second of opening the green door in March. She is standing in the doorway in a yellow dress with her hands slightly open at her sides, and she is looking at him with an expression he can only describe to himself as clear, completely clear, the expression of someone who has already done their deciding and has arrived at a place of genuine openness on the other side of it. She says, "Hi, I'm Sophia." Her voice is steady and warm and direct. He says, "Hi, Sophia, I'm Keanu." They both hear the slight absurdity of the introduction. I'm Keanu, as if she does not know, as if everyone on earth does not know. And both of them almost smile at the same moment. Almost. Not quite. There is too much in the air for an actual smile yet. She steps back from the door. He steps inside. Dolores has arranged the living room. 2 chairs angled toward each other with the low table between them. The bowl of river stones. 3 cups of coffee already on the table because she did not know what else to do with her hands this morning, and making coffee gave her something to do with them. She is standing near the kitchen doorway, not central, not in the main space between them. She has positioned herself at the edge of the room deliberately, present, available, but not in the way. This is, she has decided, between them. She is here as the person who made it possible, not as the person who manages it. The 3 of them arrange themselves. Dolores in the kitchen doorway, Keanu in one chair, Sophia in the other, the one directly across from him, the one with the ring-stained table between them and the bowl of river stones and the 3 cups of coffee that nobody reaches for yet. For the first hour, they talk about ordinary things. This is Sophia's doing, and it is the right instinct. The instinct of a teacher who understands that you do not begin with the enormous thing, you begin with the room you are actually in, and let the enormous thing arrive when the room is ready for it. She asks him how the drive was. He says the jacarandas on the street are extraordinary, and she says they are extraordinary every year, but she thinks this year particularly so. And he says he agrees. And this exchange, this completely ordinary exchange about trees, does something that all the careful preparation and the 2 weeks of waiting and the 38 years of accumulated weight could not quite do on its own. It makes them people to each other. Not a movie star and a secret daughter meeting for the first time in a loaded living room in Pasadena. Just 2 people on a Saturday morning, noticing that the jacaranda trees are particularly good this year. Sophia tells him about Paloma, the 12-year-old student with the unrecognized gift, the piece she has been composing for her. He listens the way Dolores once told Marisol he always listened, completely, without the slight distraction behind the eyes that most people have when they are waiting for their own turn to speak. He asks a question about how you teach a child to understand their own ability when the child has been conditioned to dismiss it. It is a good question. A specific question. The question of someone who is actually thinking about what she said, rather than simply waiting for her to finish. She looks at him when he asks it. She thinks, this is where that comes from. This quality of listening. I have it too, and I never knew where it came from because Tomas was wonderful, but this particular quality, this is not Tomas. She does not say this out loud, but she notes it, files it. The first of what she suspects will be many small recognitions over time. The gradual process of finding yourself in someone you have only just met, which is one of the stranger and more tender experiences available to human beings. He tells her about ex-artist's books, the publishing company he co-founded with Alexandra Grant, the love of finding physical books in a world that keeps insisting physical books are finished, the particular satisfaction of making a beautiful object that holds words. She tells him she plays guitar. He says he knows. Dolores told him, and he asks what kind of music she writes, and she says she is not sure it has a category, which is either a problem or a feature depending on how you look at it. And he says, I think anything that resists easy categorization is usually doing something interesting. She looks at him again, files it again. Dolores, from the kitchen doorway, watches this and feels something she does not have a name for, something that is grief and gratitude and wonder and a specific bittersweet quality that belongs to moments when you see two things finally touching that were always meant to touch, and you understand, simultaneously how right it is and how long it took and how much was lost in the distance between. After the first hour, the ordinary things have done their work. The room is ready. Sophia sets down her coffee cup. She is quiet for a moment. She looks at the bowl of river stones on the table between them. She picks one up. The white one, the unexpected one, the one that is a different color from all the others. She turns it in her fingers, sets it back. She says, I have something to show you. Her voice has changed slightly, still steady, still warm, but carrying something underneath it now, the slight additional weight of someone arriving at the thing they came to say. Keanu waits. She reaches into the bag beside her chair. She takes out her wallet. It is ordinary, brown leather, worn at the corners, the kind of wallet that has been used every day for years, and shows it. She opens it. She does not go to the cards or the cash. She goes to a small pocket at the back, behind everything else. The pocket that wallets have that most people put nothing in because it is too small and too awkward and too inconvenient. She reaches into this pocket. She takes out a photograph. It is small, folded. The fold lines are deep and white, with 25 years of being opened and closed and carried everywhere. In this wallet and the wallet before it, and the wallet before that, transferred carefully each time. The way you transfer the things you cannot leave behind when everything else changes. She unfolds it. She holds it out to him. He takes it. He looks at it. It is old. The particular color tones of 1980s photography, slightly faded at the edges. The image slightly worn at the fold lines but still clear. Still completely clear. A theater. A painted backdrop. Dark blues and greens. A forest scene. A smear of gold at the top. A young woman standing in front of it, laughing at something off to the left of the frame, completely unaware of how young she looks, how alive she looks, how the laugh is the same laugh that will echo in this house in Pasadena 38 years later. And in the background of the photograph, slightly out of focus, walking into the frame from the right side, mid-laugh, head turned slightly, as if responding to something just said to him from behind the camera. A young man, 19 years old, dark hair, mid-laugh. Completely unaware the photograph is being taken. Keanu looks at this young man for a long moment. He knows this face. He knows it the way you know your own face. Not from the outside, not the way others see it, but from the inside, the way it feels from behind the eyes. The particular quality of being that face rather than observing it. He looks at it for a long time. Then he looks up at Sophia. She is watching him with her clear, direct, warm eyes. Her mother's eyes, his listening quality, her grandfather Rodrigo's stubborn jaw, her grandmother Carmen's small nose, and underneath all of these inheritances, underneath the accumulated features of everyone who came before, herself. Entirely, specifically, irreducibly herself. He says, "Where did you get this?" His voice is very quiet. She says, "My mother's closet. I was 14, looking for a winter scarf." He looks back at the photograph. "How long have you had it?" he says. 25 years, she says. "I've carried it in every wallet I've owned since I was 14. He is very still. She continues. "I didn't know for certain," she says. "I had a feeling. The kind of feeling you can't explain to anyone, because it lives below the place where words come from. I looked at that young man in the background of my mother's photograph and I thought," she pauses. She is choosing her words carefully. Not because she is uncertain of them, but because they have been forming for 25 years and she wants to say them right. "I thought, that face is related to my face. I don't know how. I don't know what it means. But that is not the face of a stranger." She folds her hands in her lap. "I never said anything. Not to Mama, not to anyone. I kept it because I didn't want to hurt her. I didn't want to hurt Papa. And then Papa was gone, and I still didn't say it, because Mama had enough to carry. And I thought, if she wants me to know, she will find a way to tell me. When she is ready. When the time is right." She looks at him steadily. "I didn't know you had knocked on this door in March," she says. "I didn't know Marisol had written to you. I didn't know any of the machinery that had been moving behind the scenes. I just knew that my mother made tamales last month, on an ordinary Sunday, and wore a dress and had a face I had never seen before." She pauses. "And I thought, she's finally ready." The room is completely quiet. Dolores, in the kitchen doorway, has her hand over her mouth. The clay mark is not there today. Her hands are clean, but the gesture is the same. The involuntary hand, the gesture of someone receiving something too large for a normal expression. She looks at her daughter. She looks at her daughter sitting across from this man in the yellow dress with her hands folded in her lap and her face open and her voice steady. And she thinks about a 14-year-old girl on a stepladder reaching for a winter scarf in the back of a closet, finding a shoebox, opening it, looking at a photograph, understanding something enormous, and saying nothing for 25 years, carrying it in her wallet the way you carry the things you cannot leave behind, the way Dolores carried The Secret, the way Keanu carried Toronto, the way all of them, all three of them, have been carrying pieces of the same truth in different pockets, separately, for decades, protecting each other from the weight of it by absorbing the weight themselves. 3 people, 3 silences, 1 truth. Keanu looks at Sophia. He has not spoken since she said, "That is not the face of a stranger." He is looking at her and the photograph is still in his hand, and the room is still quiet, and the jacaranda trees outside are still purple, and the red geraniums are still red, and the coffee is getting cold on the table, with the river stones, and none of these things are stopping or moving aside to accommodate what is happening inside this man in this moment. He is 59 years old. He has lost his best friend. He has lost his daughter. He has lost his partner. He has been loved by hundreds of millions of strangers, and known, truly known, by very few people, and has understood this as the particular tax that a very public life levies on the private self. He is looking at a woman he has never met before today, and she is the least like a stranger of anyone he has ever sat across from, because she has been carrying his face for 25 years, in her wallet, in the small, inconvenient pocket behind everything else that most people put nothing in. Not because she wanted something from him, not because she planned anything or hoped for anything or built any version of a scenario in which this moment arrived, simply because she found a photograph and understood something and loved her mother enough to wait, and trusted that the truth had its own timing, and her job was simply to be ready when it came. She has been ready for 25 years. He opens his mouth, closes it. He looks at the photograph again, at the young man walking into the frame, at himself, 19 years old, mid-laugh, unaware that the next 40 years of his life are already arranged and waiting for him in the specific, unalterable way that the past is always already arranged, the choices already made, the consequences already in motion, the daughter already beginning in the particular warmth of a Toronto winter and a kitchen that smelled of chiles and dish soap, and the absolute ordinary grace of being welcomed to someone's table without questions. He looks up, he looks at Sophia, and here is the moment. Not when Dolores told him about the pregnancy, not when he heard the name and the birth date for the first time, not when he held the clay bird in both hands in the living room on a Tuesday in March. Here, now, this, the moment he understands that this woman, this specific, complete, whole, fully formed human being, sitting across from him in a yellow dress on a Saturday morning in April, with the jacaranda trees outside and the river stones on the table between them, has known about him for longer than he has known about her, that she found him first, that she has been carrying him, quietly, for 25 years, not asking for anything, not demanding anything, just carrying, just keeping, just waiting with a patience so vast and so complete that it looks, from the outside, like nothing at all. The same patience as her mother, the same fierce, protecting, absolute love that keeps its own counsel and trusts the truth to arrive in its own time. Keanu Reeves does not speak. He cannot speak. One of the most famous men on earth, who has spoken in front of cameras for 30 years, who has delivered lines in burning buildings and collapsing realities, and every genre of human extremity that cinema has ever imagined. He cannot find a single word. He sits completely still. He does not move for almost a full minute. Sophia does not try to fill the silence. She lets him have it. She gives it to him the way she gives her students silence, when they have just played something true and need a moment to live inside it, before the world resumes. She simply waits. She is very good at waiting. She has had practice. When he finally speaks, his voice is different from any voice he has used in the hour they have been sitting here. Quieter, slower, coming from somewhere further down than the voice that talks about jacaranda trees and 12-year-old students and publishing companies. He says, "You've been carrying me around for 25 years." Not a question. A statement. An understanding arriving in real time. "Yes," she says. Without knowing for certain, she confirms. Just a feeling, she says. But a very specific one. The kind that doesn't go away, and doesn't need to be explained, and doesn't ask your permission to be true. He nods very slowly. He looks at the photograph one more time. He holds it out to her. She takes it. She folds it carefully along its existing creases, the white fold lines that are the record of 25 years of being opened and looked at, and closed and carried. She puts it back in the small, inconvenient pocket in the back of her wallet. She puts her wallet away. She looks at him. She says, "I don't need anything from you. I want to say that clearly. I have a whole life. I have my mother and my students, and my guitar, and my grandfather's stubbornness, and my grandmother's tamale recipe, and my father's way of looking at art like it is trying to tell him a secret." She pauses. "I have everything I need." She holds his gaze. "But I thought you should know," she says, "that I turned out okay. That the choice my mother made, the terrible, painful, loving choice. It worked. I am evidence that it worked. And I wanted you to be able to see that for yourself. She reaches forward. She picks up one of the river stones from the bowl. The white one, the unexpected one. The one that is a different color from all the others. She holds it out to him across the table. She collected these from the Arroyo Seco, Sophia says, every single one by hand. She told me that each one felt right for a specific reason she couldn't explain. Just that it felt right. He takes the stone from her hand. Their fingers touch this time. Neither of them is careful about it. He looks at the stone in his palm, smooth and white and specific, exactly itself, shaped by water and time into the precise thing it is. And then, only once she has given him the stone and the sentence about turning out okay, only once she has made absolutely clear that she is here not from need, but from the same basic human desire for truth that her mother finally found her way to, and that Marisol found her way to, and that all of them have been circling for 38 years. Only then does Keanu Reeves reach across the table. He takes Sophia's hand. He holds it the way he held the clay bird, the way he held the yellow tulips, the way he holds all the fragile, specific, irreplaceable things that have been placed in his keeping, carefully, with both hands. He does not say anything. She does not say anything. They sit in the quiet living room in Pasadena in April, with the jacaranda trees outside, and the river stones on the table and the coffee getting cold, and Dolores in the kitchen doorway with her hand over her mouth and her eyes full, and they simply stay like this, two people, finally in the same room, finally no longer parallel, finally arrived. Keanu Charles Reeves was born on September 2nd, 1964, in Beirut, Lebanon. His father left when he was 3. He grew up in Toronto. He dropped out of school. He became one of the most beloved actors in the history of cinema, not by being the loudest person in the room, but by being, consistently and against all industry advice, the most genuine one. River Phoenix died on October 31st, 1993, outside the Viper Room on Sunset Boulevard in West Hollywood. He was 23 years old. Ava Archer Syme Reeves was stillborn on December 24th, 1999. Her mother, Jennifer Syme, died in a car accident on Cahuenga Boulevard on April 2, 2001. She was 28 years old. Keanu is with Alexandra Grant. They appeared publicly together for the first time in November 2019. They co-founded Ex-Artists Books. He is, by every account, from every person who has ever met him in an ordinary moment, on a subway platform, at a street corner, in a diner, in a parking lot, exactly the kind of man this story describes. The kind who holds fragile things carefully. The kind who sits with strangers who are crying without asking why. The kind who carries what he carries quietly and without complaint and finds, in the carrying, a way to remain fundamentally, stubbornly, genuinely kind. Dolores Vega, Sofia Ruiz, Marisol Vega, Tomas Ruiz, Rodrigo and Carmen Vega. These are fictional characters. The Patrician Diner on Bloor Street is real. The Humber River is real. De La Salle College in Toronto is real. The Armory Center for the Arts on West Colorado Boulevard in Pasadena is real. The Arroyo Seco is real. The jacaranda trees of Pasadena are real and are, every April and May, exactly as extraordinary as described. The photograph in the wallet is not real, but the feeling it describes, of finding someone in an old image, of recognizing a face before you have words for what the recognition means, of carrying a truth in the smallest pocket of the thing you keep closest to yourself. That is as real as anything that has ever happened to anyone. The secret that left Keanu Reeves speechless is not that he had a daughter. It is that his daughter had been carrying him first. That she found him in a photograph when she was 14 years old, and understood something true, and said nothing, not from shame, not from fear, but from love. The same love her mother had. The same love that let a taxi drive away on a wet Toronto street in 1985, because some loves are big enough to let the thing they love go free. 3 generations of that love, passed down without being named, held quietly, completely, with a fierceness that looks from the outside like nothing at all, until the day someone finally knocks on a green door in Pasadena, and the door opens, and everything that was carried alone is carried together, and the jacaranda trees are purple, and the geraniums are red, and the coffee gets cold because nobody reaches for it, because some mornings are too full of the real thing to have room for anything else. They are not used to it. They expect the performance. They get the person. Every time. And that is the story of the morning Keanu Reeves sat in a parked car for 11 minutes on a quiet street in Pasadena and walked through a door that changed the shape of everything he thought he knew about his own life. A woman who loved him enough to let him go. A daughter who carried him quietly for 25 years without asking for a single thing. And a man who drove himself, no assistant, no camera, no announcement, to find out what was on the other side of a door he had been driving toward, without knowing it, for 30 years. If this story moved you even a little, if it reminded you that the people who love us most are sometimes the quietest ones, the ones carrying things we cannot see, then do something simple right now. Hit the like button. Not for the algorithm, not for the numbers. Do it because this story deserves to reach someone who needs it today. Someone who is carrying something quietly. Someone who needs to be reminded that truth, however long it takes to arrive, always finds its door. And if you are not subscribed yet, subscribe right now and join this community. Because this is a channel about real human stories. Stories about kindness and loss and love, and the courage it takes to knock on a door after 30 years and simply say, I am here. We could all use a little more of that in the world. Now I want to hear from you. Where are you watching this from right now? Drop your city, your country, your corner of the world in the comments below. I read every single one, and every time I do, I am reminded of exactly why these stories matter. Because you are everywhere, and you are paying attention, and that means something. And one more thing. See that video appearing on your screen right now? Click on it. I promise you it is worth your next few minutes. Thank you for being here. Thank you for listening. Now go be kind to someone today, because you never know what they have been carrying quietly.